Hey, my name is Kaylee. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. This is a Read Rant Review, where, you guessed it, I read a bunch of crazy books and then I tell you all about them. Today we're going to be talking about Yesteryear by Caro Burke. This book was published in 2026, in April of 2026 actually, so just earlier this month, at time of recording at least. Currently on Goodreads, it's sitting at a 4.18 with nearly 40,000 ratings. However, I have seen this all over the place, absolutely everywhere, right? Like it's a top trending on Barnes and Noble, on Amazon. I saw it's on a couple like of the big book clubs, and like being talked about like at a pretty national level in terms of like book news. And so I figured I would have to read it, right? Like I want to get ahead on these trends and try to like form my own opinions and read things before they get like uber mainstream. So, and also it's a fascinating premise, okay? This is the book description. A traditional American woman, a beautiful wife and mother who sells her pioneer lifestyle of raw milk and farm fresh eggs to her millions of social media followers, suddenly awakens cold, filthy, and terrified in the brutal reality of 1805, where she must unravel whether this living nightmare is an elaborate hoax, a twisted reality show, or something far more sinister in this sensational debut novel. My name was Natalie Heller Mills, and I was perfect at being alive. Natalie lives a traditional lifestyle. Her charming farmhouse is rustic, her husband a handsome cowboy, her 6 children each more delightful than the last. So what if there are nannies and producers behind the scenes? Her kitchen hiding industrial-grade fridges and ovens, her husband the Republican equivalent of a Kennedy? What Natalie's followers, all 8 million of them, don't know won't hurt them. And the angry women, the privileged Ivy League coastal elite haters who call her an anti-feminist iconoclast, they're sick with jealousy because Natalie isn't simply living the good life, she's living the ideal and just so happens to be building an empire from it. Until one morning, she wakes up in a life that isn't hers. Her home, her husband, her children, they're all familiar, but something is off. Her kitchen is warmed by a sputtering fire rather than electricity. Her children are dirty and strange, and her soft-handed husband is suddenly a competent farmer. Just yesterday, Natalie was curating photos of homemade jam for her Instagram, and now she's expected to haul firewood and hand wash clothes until her fingers bleed. Has she become the unwitting star of a brutal reality show? Could it really be time travel? Is she being tested by God? By Satan? When Natalie suffers a brutal injury in the woods, she realizes 2 things. This is not her beautiful life, and she must escape it by any means possible. To be frank, let me give a couple disclaimers real fast, right? This video is not for the author, right? My reviews are for fellow readers. It's not for the author, friends, fans, family, stans, anything of the like. Like I said, fellow readers, I'm just here to gossip about a book, okay? I have one rule on the channel and one rule only. Say it with me. Don't make it weird. Please, for the love of God, that's all I ask of you people. Don't make it weird, okay? I'm just here to talk about this book and give an honest opinion and review and deep dive of it, okay? So, with that being said, there's a couple of you, your worlds are about to collide in a really crazy way, okay? Speaking of Tradwives and like evangelical influencers and like Christian, you know what I'm saying? Like religious influencers in general, I am fascinated by them. I don't know why. It's like one of my guilty pleasures, right? Like I am on the R Fundy Snark quite a bit, like lurking in that subreddit. I love, Jordan and McKay, B. Haney, Unreligiously, Jen from Fundy Fridays. I keep up with all of their stuff and all of their deep dives about all of these fundies and like what they're up to in these crazy relationships and the way that they're living. And it's just some weird fascination that I have with these people. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, that's fine. It's literally just the world of the influencers that this book is about. It's just these people's real lives. But it definitely seems like some of this is directly inspired by Ballerina Farms. And if you don't know who that is or what I'm talking about or why I think it's inspired by that, I'll have some links below to some of those people who I just rattled off, some of my favorite YouTubers that are in that sphere. I'll link some of their videos so you can watch it because it's fascinating. I would probably listen to this book first and then go see the real life people who this is happening to or who is like doing this sort of thing. And you'll understand why this was such an interesting read to me. The book is separated into 3 parts. We have the past, the present, and the future. I will read you the first couple of paragraphs of the book just so you can get the vibe for the unlikableness of this narrator, which I personally find fascinating. I love unlikable characters if they're done well, and I do think this one was done well. I think it's so interesting being in Natalie's brain for a lot of this, right up until the point it got very repetitive and boring, and I wanted to tap out at like the 40-50% mark like I mentioned earlier. Beyond that though, I really enjoy a crazy little lady doing stuff. Like, it's so funny to me. This is the last day of the life I imagined for myself. I woke up 2 minutes before my alarm went off, like usual. 5:58 and bing, eyes wide open, ready to greet the day. I've never had a hard time waking up in the morning. Never used the snooze button either, not once in my life. Sobriety helps. I don't drink. Discipline helps too. I was born with spades of discipline. I'm practically overflowing with it, which is why I think I've never had that much trouble with anything in my life. Not motherhood, nor marriage, nor building a business, nor serving him. All of it appeared, him capitalized obviously, like him. All of it appeared to me as a series of tasks to be accomplished each day at the right time in the correct chronological order. I know it's not that easy for other people, but it really is for me. That's why all of those strangers liked me so much. That and the money. The money definitely helped too. It was wintertime. January. A cold front had just blown through the pass. By my bedroom window, the radiator was puffing hot air. The sky outside was a deep as death black and would be for another few hours. Our farm was nestled in the rolling divots between 2 mountain ranges in Idaho, which meant we didn't see the sun until 9 or so in the winter months. We were located 5 miles down a long, winding, graveled country road. Not even airplanes flew overhead. In the darkness, I listened to the distant mooing of sassafras, our beloved dairy cow. I could tell by the pitch and register of her moans that my husband, Caleb, was milking her. Right on time. The man was good. My husband was not disciplined before he met me. He was the youngest of 5 boys, the runt of the litter in an American dynasty. His father was the latest senator in a long line of U.S. senators currently barreling through a presidential bid. 3rd time's the charm. His mother was a homemaker who had spent most of her life drowning in Chardonnay. Together, through a near-fatal combination of paternal neglect and maternal sympathy, they had raised Caleb to be soft and spoiled and sweet. But the only thing more valuable than a person with God-given traits is a person who's willing to learn. And my husband, that man, had been willing to learn. And who was I? A flawless Christian woman, the manic pixie American dream girl of this nation's deepest, darkest fantasies. The mother every woman wanted to be, and the wife every man wanted to come home to. Like a nun in a porno, it didn't make sense, but also, by God, it worked. My name is Natalie Heller Mills, and I was perfect at being alive. Interesting. She wakes up and she says all these prayers and thankful thoughts. She goes downstairs and she is greeted by her producer, Shannon, who helps obviously take all of the videos and editing and uploading. And she has like full access to all the different social media accounts and uploading them for her. And then there's 2 nannies that help Natalie take care of her children. None of these people get talked about. They also have a bunch of farm hands that are actually doing all of the work on the farm. None of this gets talked about. It is presented on the account as though it is a one-woman show, right? Her and her husband, child rearing and running this whole farm on their own, which is not the case at all. And so from her perspective, we are experiencing the absolute cognitive dissonance that is happening of online Natalie and real life Natalie. Part of real life Natalie's issue is she's not just unlikable to us, she's just unlikable in general. Her entire life, she has struggled befriending people. She has struggled maintaining relationships, and she never knows how to say the right things, or she always says, you know, things that are a little bit more rude than maybe she intended, which would be fine if it didn't feel malicious, right? Now that we're in her head and we're seeing the way that she talks to people, it seems a little intentional. So I have a hard time like feeling bad for her or being like, oh, this is a, you know, I don't know. It's interesting. We'll just keep talking about it. You'll understand what I'm trying to say, okay? The one thing that does come up, though, that is worth mentioning is her producer, Shannon, has been waking up with nightmares, and all of the workers, or at least the nannies and the producer, share a bedroom with bunk beds and stuff. And they get paid, I think, like $15 an hour or something. It's not the best working conditions for working for an Instagram, YouTube person who's making as much money as she is. She's got no business paying these people these horrible rates, but doesn't matter. Point being, they're all sleeping together in these bunk beds, and Shannon keeps waking up from these terrible nightmares. And so Natalie asks her, she's like, are you still having those? You doing okay? You need some time off? But it's like she asks like that kind of attitude comes across. And Shannon plays it off, and she's like, yeah, I'm fine. Okay. Then they move on with their day making content. Through the camera's discerning eye, the cooking space was perfectly cluttered. A half-filled mason jar of water here, a flour spill there, a few forgotten flower stems strewn across a worn-looking cutting board. It looked like a space where a mother worked, like a kitchen in the real world, only obviously better than anything the real world had to offer. People think they want minimalism. They think they want a house absent of stuff, when in fact a perfectly uncluttered home makes them want to kill themselves. A space must always look lived in for someone to want to live in it. This is a completely obvious notion when you take a moment to really think about it, but most people don't take a moment to really think about anything. Most people are morons. And she goes on and talks about this, about like all of her followers basically being morons and falling for her, like what she's putting out there and stuff. It's all, again, very, very manipulative being in her head. It would be very repetitive if I just read you all of this stuff, so I'm not going to. But there is a point where she has a 12-year-old daughter named Clementine. I love that name, by the way, who asks her what a Tradwife is. And Natalie, for her, this facade of motherhood and sweetness and goodness that she's trying to portray. Because again, all of her bitter badness is just in her head that we're seeing. But she, to the outside world, is projecting this like perfect Christian motherhood. And so when her daughter asks her what a Tradwife is, everything in her brain comes to a screeching halt. It almost seemed possible that Clementine might hear the mechanical clicks of my brain as it whirred into warp speed, sorting through 500 possible answers to that question. My eldest daughter, like me, not just in likeness, but in disposition too, she held her intelligence like a knife behind her back. Now that she was creeping toward womanhood, I found her similarities a bit unnerving, like watching a clone of myself walk slowly toward me from a faraway point in the distance. What would happen when she arrived? I'm aware this isn't the kind of thing that you're meant to feel about your own daughter, but motherhood is like its own kind of curation, which is to say, every woman I know lied to me about what it would be like before I became one myself. And interspersed through the chapters is, I'm showing you my screen in case you're not watching, is these line breaks where it'll cut to her being asked a question. It's italicized, so like indicating somebody else is asking this, and she's being like interviewed, saying, do your children enjoy being filmed? She says, oh, they love it. And the other question that she got asked earlier is like, why don't you tell your followers about all the help that you have on the farm? And she's like, well, I never said that we did it on our own and blah, blah, blah. And it's really important for us to maintain their privacy. I would hate if my social media, affected them in any negative way. And it's just interesting. Very, very interesting. And then she decides that she needs a break. Wants to kind of distract from this Tradwife thing, doesn't want to take it out on other people and be mad. So she's going to go to Target. And so she grabs her 3 daughters, piles them all into the car, and they go to Target, right? It's Clementine, Jessa, and Junebug. Or these 3. I'm not going to put any names up because you guys don't really need to know them. I'm just going to refer to the kids pretty generically. But yes, Clementine being the oldest, she's really the main one that comes up. So the 4 of them, they pile into her SUV and they go to Target. These are very, very rare trips, right? She is very homeopathic, organic. They make everything at the farm, right? They do all of this stuff. And so going here, buying these things and going to Target and engaging in this consumerism, capitalism, blah, 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 is just not something that they usually do. And of course, the one of few times that they do it, She runs into a girl that she went to high school with. Vanessa and I had gone to high school together. She'd been on the track team too, but had made varsity her senior year, so we hadn't spent much time together. She was in nursing scrubs now, standing by 2 overflowing shopping carts, her preteen daughter glowering behind her with the same expression of profound disappointment that Vanessa had worn every track meet. I glanced at the cart closest to me. Disposable razors, disposable tissue boxes, a half dozen slices of chemical bloated ham wrapped in 3 layers of plastic. I could practically smell the stink of the landfill where all of this stuff, all of these products were designed to be trash, would end up in a month from now. Then I looked back at Vanessa, who was now frowning at me with the same sour expression as her daughter, and my heart softened with nostalgia. Poor thing, she never won a race in her life. Oh, got it. Like I said, that's Natalie. That is the summary of the last 30 pages of getting to know her in her head. So they introduce their daughters. Vanessa, she's like, I really admire your commitment to the olden days with those names. Again, Clementine, Jessa, and Junebug. My smile shrank by an inch. Here we go. Vanessa had grown up in a strict, devout family, much stricter and more devout than my own, but she'd since emancipated herself from her parents, and now liked to write long-winded diatribes about her terrible upbringing via Facebook statuses that garnered, on average, 3 to 5 likes a pop. Vanessa wanted the world to know that she was modern now. She'd changed. She ate organic, except when she got her groceries at Target, apparently. Self-proclaimed progressive women like Vanessa were chemically addicted to hating women like me. I knew that. I knew this woman got embarrassingly drunk at family parties and pulled up my Instagram page, showing anyone stupid enough to walk past that she knew this woman personally. She knew her in high school, before launching into some recycled slur of a speech about how all traditional people are idiots, all religious people are idiots, all people who choose to live a different lifestyle than hers are idiots, idiots, idiots. When what she really wanted to say was, I am so nauseatingly jealous of this woman I used to know that I think it might actually kill me. Oh. Oh, and she just keeps going. Calls her a see you next Tuesday at one point in her head. She says, sorry, Lord, my anger was getting the best of me these days. It was a problem that needed to be fixed. And I really did, to fix it. If I'd had a little more time, I swear I would have fixed it. Oh, that's a weird thing to say. Okay. And so as a parting gift and maybe a final little jab, she says, Vanessa, you should come out to the farm sometime. I knew it was the kind of threaded offer that would catch in her molars. She would know the offer was half-hearted, but still consider the possibilities anyway, because Vanessa probably wanted to see my picturesque little farm in person more than she wanted anything else in her life. The chickens, my ladies, the big red barn, which photographed so beautifully in any kind of light. The gardens, the pseudo-erotic fantasy of us baking my signature lemon zest cake together, the 2 of us laughing at something stupid, our children playing peaceably together in the background. None of it would ever happen. And yet, the idea of that impossible day would sit there, growing bacteria in the back of her throat for the next week or month or year. A profoundly humiliating desire, as strong and confusing an animal as the ones that inspired her to watch lesbian porn on low volume while her husband was sleeping next to her. She was definitely the kind of woman who watched lesbian porn on low volume while her husband was sleeping next to her. I said, my note was, Bestie, are we projecting? You sound obsessed with her. Like, knowing all of her Facebook posts and that they get 2 to 5 likes a pop. Like, this woman is like pages upon pages describing this very brief interaction in a Target aisle, okay? Vanessa was liberated, sure, but I was happy, and it was such a shame, wasn't it? The way some women so willingly compromised every ounce of themselves in the name of building a life for themselves that they didn't enjoy. And so she gets in her car and she's going to film, and she wants to have a little scene where she's like, hi, everybody. Look, we went to Target one of the few times, and Jessa, Junebug, what'd you guys get? And has that. I'm over here like I'm holding an actual camcorder. How old am I? She's like, Jessa, Junebug. She actually you think she films horizontal? She probably films vertical, right? Jessa, Junebug, what type of toys did you get? And they go through it, and then she pans over to Clementine. She's like, Clementine, what did you get? I don't want to be filmed, Mom. She puts the phone down on her lap, and she's like, I didn't know you didn't want to be filmed. And they have the whole back and forth. And she feels like she's just losing control of her daughter. Hey, man, she's a preteen. I don't know what you would expect. I'm actually kind of surprised it lasted that long before she totally lost her mind on you. And so that sours the entire trip. And it just continues to get more and more sour because when she gets home, she has an email. Natalie, I'm writing to let you know that I won't be working for you any longer. Between that, what happened over the summer and all the nightmares, it's clear that this job isn't good for my mental health any longer. I've got a bus ticket for later tonight. I don't need a ride. Nanny Amy is going to drive me to the station. For what it's worth, I don't think you're a bad person. I think you're just confused. Please tell the kids I love them. Shannon. P.S. So sorry for screwing up your content calendar, because Shannon was her like content manager, whatever person. And so she's reading this email and she's like losing her mind. And at that like same exact moment that all of this is happening, her husband comes in and he's like, honey, I've got some news. I found my purpose. And she internally, she's like, I already know what he's about to say, but I have to put on the face and I have to play the role of a surprise, supportive wife. What is it, honey? I want to be a senator. He's going to follow in his daddy's footsteps and he's going to be a senator. And both of them have these like, you know, from the bootstraps, good red-blooded American nonsense, represent the middle working class. Whatever the frick their marketing is to try to get elected, he's like, I can do it too. And it's a great representation. We have this whole farm thing going for us. You know, everybody will vote for me. Okay, so she plays along with it. Because there was only this plan, a very delicate one, in which two variables, my producer and my husband, were taken care of in one fell swoop. And then we get like a little break. What is the name for that? The break in stuff like this. If you're looking at my screen, where it's like in the middle of a chapter and it's like the indicators of like a time jump or a topic jump or whatever. What is that called? I could Google it, but I don't want to. It jumps to, I don't think you're a bad person, her reflecting on that letter. A bold thing to say to the wife of the man you've been That was the word I was looking for. Bold. The whole email was so hair-raisingly bold that it might have caused another lesser woman to have a complete nervous breakdown. And then I said, oh no, he assaulted her, didn't he? Because Shannon was having all of those nightmares and disappeared in the middle of the night. I was like, what kind of stuff could have gone sideways? And then for her to say that Natalie's confused about something, I said, oh my God, her husband is like a horrible, horrible man. Of course he's going to be a politician. I'm not kidding. So she grabs her husband's hands and she's like, okay, honey, I support you being a senator. I support this political run. Let's pray. Hold hands and they go to the foot of the bed and they kneel and we kneel together at the foot of the couch. Oh, pardon me, couch. I pressed my forehead into my clasped hands and tried to breathe the anger out of me, but I couldn't. It was like a germ. It just kept replicating in my stomach. Usually my husband's failures were easy to forgive, but tonight I wanted to kill him. I could practically see his insipid prayers float past me in little Comic Sans thought bubbles. Please keep my kids safe, Lord, along with the chickens. Help my wife continue to love me. A blowjob would be nice, Lord. And if it's not too much, I'd like the strength to become something memorable. I'd like to become a legend. All men wanted to become legends. It was so embarrassing. And what did I want? An easy answer. I wanted more of what I already had. I wanted the whole entire world to see itself through my eyes, a new level of influence. But that's not the kind of thing you ask for directly, so I settled for something simpler. Please let this plan work, Lord. Please don't let her win, and please give my husband a spine. I'm tired of needing him to borrow mine. Amen. And that's how part 1 ends, and I said, oh, that was a lot. I feel like that was a lot. What do you mean that was part 1? Okay, part 2, the present. Hello, it's been a few days. I'm not upstairs using my microphone. We lost power for like 30 hours. And it's currently Wednesday at 3 p.m. while I film this. Let's see how good I can do. This needs to go live in less than 24 hours. Let's see if I can wrap it up, y'all. So, if the quality is shot compared to what you have just been listening to, sorry. I want to acknowledge it. And hi, and I love you, and thank you for being here. And also, I don't think I said it earlier. Hi, and I love you, and thank you to being here. For the audio listeners over on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I love you guys so much. And then also, obviously, of course, channel members and book besties and Bindery folks, patrons over on Patreon and all that good stuff. So grateful for all of you guys. So we go into chapter 2, and this is where 57 chapters occur. And throughout them, we have it we'll have like a thought or a reflection or a current day thing, and then it'll be interrupted by the line break thing that I was asking about earlier of what the hell it was called, because it happens so consistently throughout this book that we will have current thing happen, it'll trigger a memory, we'll have a page break going into the memory, page break back into the current moment, which is fine, and it's a cool way to tell the story, and it feels relevant, and it feels efficient when you do it that way. However, for Kayleys that are speaking to cameras and to y'all, makes it hard to describe what's happening, and it's a little clunky. So we'll see how that goes. Apologies if it is a little clunky. I'm going to try to do my best to smooth it out, but we'll see how that happens. Part 2 opens with Natalie waking up in the morning, and her house is freezing cold, and the room is really, really dark, and something is just wrong. Immediately, she clocks that something is wrong. And so she goes to reach over to grab her phone from her nightstand, falls out of bed because the nightstand is not there. Her phone is not there. And she gets back up on the bed, and she's like freaking out a little bit, and she realizes that the duvet is not the same as the one that she had, like her really fancy nice comforter. And she's like, oh my God, did I get kidnapped? What's happening here? And she starts listening, and there's a bunch of kid voices that she hears outside of her room. And so she calls out, and she's like, someone there? And the kids say, Mama? And so she starts to make her way toward these children's voices. And as she's going, she's realizing that this house is the same layout as her house. This is her house, but it's not her house, right? And the floors feel weird. You know, this is totally different flooring than it should be. And when she gets to the kitchen and sees all these kids, they look like her. They look like her kids, but they're not, right? This isn't Jessa and Junebug and Clementine and Stetson and whatever the other one was. These are not her children, but they look like her, and they're calling her Mama, and she's really, really, like, terrified. And being scared triggers her memories, right? And we get our little page break into her, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, past, future, unknown time frame where we're at. It makes her think of her previous life, her social media version of life, where she felt fear for the first time, and it was when she was giving birth to Clementine, her first kid. And upon giving birth, she had this like overwhelming feeling that this was such a good thing, right? Like the Lord was giving life and giving her something good, that she was waiting for the other shoe to drop. Maybe he was going to punish me in some other way. Caleb was going to slip and fall and hit his head on the corner of the bed. My mother was going to suffer a fatal car accident on the way to the hospital. A trade must take place for this life to enter the world. As my body slowly halved open like a peach, I realized that it was me who was losing my life. Me who had vanished from the world to make room for this new child. I will never be Natalie again. I will only ever be Mama. For one single moment, I wished the child gone, not just out of me, but out of this world, erased. Then the room was filled with her bellowing, and the fear fell away, and the love, or something like it, came tunneling back through. Interesting. So the eldest daughter who is in there, who's probably 12 or 13, right about Clementine's age, is taking care of the kids, very much in the mom role. She sees that Natalie is freaking out and tells her to go outside, right? She's like, go get some air, go out on the porch, like you're freaking the kids out. So she does. And as she's leaving, she sees a bunch of marks on the door frame indicating like child height, like as they grow, right? And you kind of keep a log of it. And at eye level with her is Mama, right? They were keeping track of her height. And it says Mama 1805. Oh, that's concerning. In chapter 2, we learn that in her childhood, her father abandoned her and her mother. It's Natalie, her older sister, and her mother, right? Dad runs away with his like bowling league partner, I guess, skips town. The mom doesn't want to get divorced because you're not supposed to get divorced in these religious sects, right? Like you get looked at sideways and it's just like improper. And so they move away across the country, and the mom tells the girls to just say that their dad is no longer with them, right? And it's not technically a lie, but if you phrase it in such a way, people will assume that he's dead and they'll leave you alone, right? Your mom's just a grieving widow. You know, these kids don't have a dad in their life because of a tragedy and, you know, whatever thing, and just kind of leave everybody alone. So they go along with this lie. I would be lying if I said I missed him, but I did what my mother said because this was the world I was born into, a world where good Christian women moonlighted as crisis managers for their good Christian men. The rules were laid out at church service and Sunday school and over the dinner table each night. The job of a woman was threefold: be a mother, be a wife, and keep the household clean. Oh, and don't forget to smile. During this flashback, we also learn that she excelled in school. She was wicked, wicked smart and was going off to college, which is something that her mother, I don't believe her mother ever did, and her sister did not do. Her sister was just staying home. Even though she'd graduated high school, she was staying at home until she got married off. Oftentimes I don't want to say it's like the Christian way, but that happens quite a bit where the daughter will stay home until she marries and then she'll move in with her husband. And so she was kind of breaking the mold a little bit and going off to college. And she decides to go to Harvard because she was reading about Boston and reading about Massachusetts and the way that the people were. And these people cared a lot more about intelligence and getting work done and just being straightforward. And she was hoping that that would be a much better situation for her to be in because, like we said, she knows that she's not likable. She knows that she doesn't get along with people. She doesn't want to play this whole schmoozing game. She just wants to get things done and be appreciated for her intelligence, not what she brings to the table as like a submitting wife or whatever, playing this game, right? At a very young age, she was kind of seeing through it and wanting to break the mold and go off to college. And as she is like leaving, and she's at the airport, right? She's at the gate. She's about to get on her plane and go out to Boston. She's thinking about how she will never look back. Keep that in mind. Back to Natalie in this whole 1805 era. She gets so freaked out by this whole children thing that she decides to book it. She starts just running. And as she is running away and running down this road, she sees Caleb, her husband. But it's an older version of him, and his eyes are like more inset, and he has more wrinkles, and he looks really grumpy and kind of like terrible. Like we said, the children look like her children, but not. This guy looks like her husband, but isn't her husband. And so in her head, she refers to him as old Caleb, right? So as she's running, she sees old Caleb come out of the barn. And yes, it's their barn. It looks like their barn on their property. And this is just getting weirder and weirder. And so he comes outside, sees her running, chases after her. She falls down, hurts her leg really badly. Caleb catches up to her, and he is berating her about being a like submitting wife, or this isn't how wives treat their husbands, because she spits in his face and telling him to like let her go. And then he punches her in the face and she passes out. Oh. She wakes back up again, eye pulsing from where he hit her, and she wakes up to a little girl named Maeve waking her up. This is another one of her children. It's a name that she always loved and always wanted to name one of her kids, and this daughter is perfect. She looks just like a Maeve, but it's not her kid. Again, this is emphasized so repetitively. And Maeve comes over and she tries to soothe Mama and make her feel better. And as she's thinking about this and the name being perfect, she reaches down to her stomach because she was 6 months pregnant. She is no longer pregnant. Don't know what happened to her kid, but she is no longer pregnant, and she does not know what to do with that information. She feels like she's been kidnapped. She doesn't know what these people want with her or why they're here. And so when she goes outside to the kitchen area, or like out of the room into the kitchen area, she runs into the older daughter. Her name is Mary. Mary, that's the name of what they were going to name the baby that she was 6 months pregnant with. This is so weird. And she's thinking, and she's like, I never told anybody what we were going to name the kid. Like, this has to have been some crazy stalker fan people that kidnapped me and took my kids' names and it put me, I don't know. So she's telling Mary, right, 13-year-old girl again, you're not my kids. I'm not your mom. Stop calling me your mom. I don't know what this is. Send me home, send me home, send me home. I don't know what you people want from me. And Mary's just like, you are our mom. Shut up. In this chapter as well, she has another flashback to when her and Caleb had first bought the ranch. When they bought the ranch, it had recently been updated and remodeled. But when they bought it, they were like, no, I want this to look like it did when it was originally built in the 1800s. The ranch was built in 1805, and so she They had to go through like 6 architects because nobody wanted to do it, because they were like, this is literally going to cost so much money. It's not even worth the investment. You're depreciating the value of the house. Like, this is a horrible idea. And she's like, I don't care. Money is not a problem. I want this house to look old. I want this to look like we're in the 1800s, right? I want floors that look like they were taken directly off the Mayflower. And I want all of these like old appliances, but I want my new appliances like tucked behind the wall, right? Like in the butler's pantry, basically. I want the nice new stuff in the other room, but like aesthetically, I want it to look like the 1800s. So they go through all these people until like the 6th architect agrees with it, right? Hey, dude's getting a check. He doesn't, whatever you want, ma'am. And at the end of it, he says, okay, will you be wanting indoor toilets, ma'am, or would you prefer an outhouse? I laughed stiffly. Indoor toilets are fine. Great. He shut his notebook and looked at us. Let's build you 2 a time machine. Maybe he did build a time machine? Was this architect a wizard? Is this a stress-induced fever dream? Are we actually in a different timeline? Did we actually teleport to the past? I don't know. What I do know is when Natalie went off to college, it was not what she expected. Everybody was making fun of her, right? She had a roommate named Rena, Reena. I've never seen that name before. If you're a Rena listening, hey. So Rena, her roommate, immediately starts to make fun of her, right? She's a little bit, Rena objectively, and this is how it's described, and so you'll understand what I'm trying to say here, is a little bit lower on the social hierarchy, and so she makes fun of Natalie to try to like boost her popularity with the other girls and try to have this like mean girl popularity moment almost, right? So everybody makes fun of her. They're questioning if Natalie is like Mormon or Amish or a Mennonite, or like where she came from and why she's uber religious and really weird about everything. And it's just not a very good first experience, especially because Rena and all of her friends drink in the dorm and they like cause all this ruckus all the time. And this goes back to the whole thing. Natalie wanted to go to college to study. She didn't want to play these games. She didn't want to schmooze. She was so excited to go to this Ivy League college on the East Coast where everybody would mind their own freaking business and just do school stuff. And that is not what is happening. And on one of the nights, Rena ends up inviting a boy over and hooks up with him in her bed while Natalie is in the bed across the room trying to sleep. And it is so violating and disgusting, and she is like traumatized by this moment. And now we're back to this whole thing but reversed, where she is like, I don't want anything to do with the secular world. I can't believe these people live like this. I do miss home. I never thought I would say it, but I do miss home. I hate it here. I hate being outside of like the religious, you know what I mean, world and confines and whatever that I grew up in. I was wrong to have left it because of how horrible this college experience was. She immediately regrets everything. This builds up to a point where eventually Rena is having the girls over again. A couple months has passed in school. The girls over again, and she's like, hey, you guys need to stay away from so-and-so guy, the guy that she hooked up with in the dormitory when Natalie was there. Rena's like, yeah, that guy, you know, he assaulted me. You need to watch out for him. He's a really, really bad guy. So Natalie speaks up because she's like, hey, I witnessed this horrifically. I heard you guys. You asked him to do it to you. Like, you asked for it. Why are you saying that he, you know, is a bad dude? And Rena's like, are you really questioning what I'm saying right now? Like, you're really going to, like, victim blame me? Or you're going to say blah, blah, blah? Escalate. They talk shit back and forth, this like pent up anger at each other, to the point that Rena punches Natalie in the face. Hey, looks like this was the Lord's intervention, because now Natalie has a room of her own and she's moved to a different dorm across campus. And then Rena gets like some disciplinary action and she stays in that dorm. Okay. So she's like, you know, hey, maybe I should have gotten hit in the face sooner. If I would have known that this is all I needed to do to get all the stuff that I wanted, you know, I guess I just needed to be more open to God's will or something. And so then this leads her to going instead and finding church church folk at Harvard. And so she ends up starting to go to this church service that meets in the basement. And it becomes a whole thing. It's super relevant in a second. But I have this one quote that I highlighted that, like, I believe this is a debut novel for this author, and there is a lot of potential. Like, this is a great debut novel, and there are some really, really great gems of writing, and this is one of them, I think. So, I had found myself in a highly claustrophobic holding tank for rich kids. An artificially intelligent Eden, a warm, incubated landscape designed to keep the worst kids in America safe and warm and well-fed until they matured past the urge to peck each other's eyes out. She thought she was going to this, like, educational bliss with all these, like, super smart, intelligent, motivated kids. And then she ends up in an artificially intelligent Eden. I think that's such a good description. I think that's so fascinating. Miss 1805 Natalie decides to run away from home again because, again, this is all freaking her out so badly. But this time when she runs away, she runs through the woods instead of the road, and she ends up stepping in a bear trap. I guess it's not a bear trap because it doesn't break her leg entirely, but it, like, snaps on her ankle and, like, tears the skin, and it's, like, a really deep gouge, but it doesn't break any bones. So I think it was meant for, like, littler creatures. Anyway, so she steps in this bear trap, snaps on her foot. Old Caleb comes and collects her, brings her inside. And then Mary has to, like, stitch her leg together. And obviously there's no anesthetic or anything. There's not even a way to disinfect it. They end up, like, coating it in bacon grease. And then she takes, like, a needle and some thread and just does it herself. And Natalie passes out from the pain of it all. Oh my God, we are just, like, immediately thrown into this 1805 bygone era of medicine. Good God. So you're asking yourself, Kaylee, a minute ago, you talked about the Harvard church group meeting in the basement. I did, and I said that it was important. And it's important because that's where Natalie meets Caleb, right? Her current husband, her Instagram husband guy that we've talked about a little bit here, the cowboy. That's where she meets Caleb. He ever so closely, like, he gets closer and closer to her and talks a little bit more to her each meeting, and by the fourth meeting he finally asks her on a date. So they go on one, and he's trying to get to know her, and he finds her very interesting and how she hasn't been corrupted by this secular world, and he loves this idea of her being and coming from this, like, uber religious home life. And he asks her what her future holds and, like, what does she want to do in the future. And she says that she wanted a farm with a mountain view. How, like, that's all that she wanted was just this, like, beautiful large farmland where she could just relax and see the mountains when she woke up in the morning. And when they go on their second date, Caleb says, you know what, I haven't been able to get that idea out of my head. I think that I want that too. And on their second date, they go to this, like, really, really fancy Italian restaurant, and she realizes, oh, he's rich, like, capital R rich is how it was described, which made me laugh. And he's like, I think I want this farm life that you talked about. Like, I want that future with you, and you can teach me everything that you know. And she realizes, oh, he thought I actually meant that. Because what she was actually saying is, like, as a Christian woman, right, you can't say that you want money and that you want success and that you want to marry rich, right? That's uncouth. That's inappropriate. And so instead of saying, I want money and to live comfortably, you say, I want a lot of land, right? You give this, like, this picturesque, beautiful answer of, like, I want a lot of land and to raise animals and, like, blah, blah, blah. Because, like, inherently that would mean that you would have a lot of money, I guess, or, like, I don't know. It's interesting. And so she's like, I don't know anything about farming internally. She's like, I don't know anything about farming. I don't know any of this stuff. What would I have to teach him? But she's like, hey, girl, you got to do what you got to do, I guess, because here's what did matter. He was young and handsome and wealthy, and most important of all, he liked me, really liked me. He said I was fascinating and funny and beautiful, and no one had ever thought that I was those things. I'd spent my whole life alone, floating like a specter at the far edges of elementary school friendships, then glaring at the huddled cliques I walked past in middle school, then openly denouncing them in high school. And here, suddenly, was a fundamentally likable person somehow liking me. Is it a choice if there's only one option? Oh my God, that's so sad. Jesus Christ. And so this leads to him proposing to her. He has this 4-carat antique ring, and he's like, this is perfect for you. Perfect diamond for a woman like me. I was a flawless woman, he said, a timeless piece of decoration. She tells her mother about being engaged to him. And her mother is immediately concerned because she's like, honey, she's like, hey, I support you in whatever you want to do. Keep in mind, her mom, right, moved away from this like toxic husband of hers to go and start her own life, and she's working, and she, as best as she could without getting a formal divorce, broke the mold for what a traditional Christian woman did. And she's working full time, and she's doing a single mom job, right? But the quote unquote like respectable way. So her mom already broke the mold a little bit, and then sending off her super uber intelligent go-getter daughter off to Harvard. She was like, honey, is this really the life you want? You want to marry this guy? If you marry this man, she said to me, now with her blinking eyes, you will become his smiling shadow. A year ago, I wouldn't have wanted that, but the last 6 months had changed me because of how much she disliked college and being in this like secular world. But the last 6 months had changed me. I blinked back an answer. I thought I wanted the world, Mama, but I have seen the world now and I want no part in it. Oof. And so she's going to marry this rich guy. And she's going to drop out of school. She's only been there for 6 months. She's like only in her second semester. I don't even know if she started her second semester yet. She would have to have, but oof. That's all I can say. This hurts me so much, dude. Back to Natalie getting her foot stitched up with bacon grease and twine. She goes to sleep that night, and Maeve crawls into bed next to her to help comfort her. And she asks her, she's like, honey, what is home? Like, where are we? What are we? And Maeve is like, we're home. What do you mean, Mama? She's like, no, honey, what do you call home? Do you have another name for it? Yesteryear. Maeve answers. She calls the ranch Yesteryear. Yesteryear is the name of the ranch, and that's the name of the Instagram handle that she made. Right? So she's like, I am home. This is so weird. I don't know what the hell is going on. But this is like the confirmation, I guess, of her worst fears in a way. I don't know. Go back. Let's talk about the wedding that she has with Caleb. It is beautiful, right? He comes, again, capital R rich. This guy has so much money. She is coming home from, again, a single mom salary. So this is a huge lifestyle change for her. This is a big, big deal. And the dad is a politician. It's a generational politicians here. And so she's getting used to that dynamic and seeing everybody. And immediately she clocks that his mom is living off of like bottles of Chardonnay and like happy pills, like Mom's Little Helpers and stuff. And is, again, this cognitive dissonance thing is happening very clearly, even though she's not putting a name to it, of realizing, oh, this is not what I expected this to be, but this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, this is what makes me happy, and this is what, like, a good Christian woman is, and, like, a good life for a Christian woman. So why am I questioning it? Why do I feel weird right now seeing all these people and the way that they're doing these things? And this gets confirmed when, after the wedding, her and Caleb hook up for the first time. They were both saving it for marriage, and it's not good. And it goes into like a very detailed description of just like, he's not into it and she doesn't know what to do and they don't communicate very well and neither of them have a good time and it just is not what it was promised to be and what it was sold as. But they press on, you know, maybe, hopefully it gets better. A year later, she's pregnant and she goes back to school to do something, or she goes back for that semester to go and pick up stuff. I don't know what I cannot remember for the life of me what the context is, and I don't want to look it up. Sorry, not sorry. You should know that by now on this channel. So she's back on the college campus, pregnant, glowing, living her best life. Runs into her roommate, Rena, right? The one that punched her in the face and made her move and start going to this whole church thing in the first place. Runs into Rena, and they have a little bit of a catch-up. And Rena is talking about how she is that summer going to start getting an internship, and she's going to start going down this like whole thing to try to pursue her degree. I believe she wants to be a lawyer. And Natalie is just sitting here thinking about like, oh my God, Rena looks like she's judging me, but I'm judging her, right? Like she's the one that's going to live a terrible life. This internship that she's about to take. It was exactly the kind of opportunity that girls like Rena said they wanted. Competitive and respectful and well paid, and after all that time I'd spent online in those lonely months of my first trimester, all those midnight hours pouring through panicked chat threads and editorial screens about the desperate plight of the uppity working woman, I knew exactly what would come next. As long as Rena didn't screw up royally over the next few summers, she would get a job offer from the firm after graduation. 6 figures right out of the gate. Living the dream. She would start working 70 or 80 hours a week, subsisting mostly on a diet of cocaine and Red Bull. Her coworkers would comprise of a bullpen of male colleagues, men who screwed the small handful of women in the office nonstop, personally and professionally. From here on out, Rena's life was going to be hard. She would have to work hard to get the job, and hard to keep it, and even harder to get promoted. And any promotion she received would only lead to more work, more responsibilities, more hours in the office, and in the meantime, she would have to squeeze out a few free hours a week to do everything else. Date, stay fit, buy groceries, and see friends. If she was one of the lucky ones, she would keep receiving little bumps to her salary. Smaller, of course, than the bumps her male colleagues received. But no matter, no biggie, Rena would grow used to this quickly. The simple act of receiving less than she wanted at the exact same time she watched someone else receive more than she could have hoped for. Banger sentence, by the way. She would spend her 20s feeling disappointment and labeling it gratitude, and then she would convince herself that this was a form of Buddhist enlightenment. Be happy with what you have. This is what she would tell herself each time she was faced with the fact that she had once again received less money, less praise, and even smaller portion of blow than her male coworkers. Don't forget to say thank you. Little bumps, little bumps. During this time period of professional growth, Rena would also do her best to fall in love and get married, and if she managed to do that, then years later, when she finally got around to having kids, she would act utterly shocked when her doctor informed her that she was a geriatric candidate, and it would be an uphill battle to get pregnant, if she was lucky, and from what I'd seen, Rena had never been that lucky. She'd have to only do 1 or 2 rounds of IVF, and there would only be a small handful of months where she found herself joking loudly about lighting money on fire while her husband jabbed at the fat in her ass with a needle. His mind starting to wander past his miserable aging wife to the fun young assistant in his office, the one who was easy and light and funny, the one who had started to look subconsciously to him like the appropriate age for a woman to become pregnant. And when the time came, when Rena finally gave birth, when she finally looked around and realized she had made it, she was at the top of the mountain, she had it all, the landscape would look like this. Her husband had no longer wanted to touch her, her boss no longer wanted to promote her, and her childless friends no longer wanted to spend time with her, and her friends with children no longer had time to see her. And Rena, sweet, precious Rena, would complain about none of it. Not the disappointing husband, or the failing career, or the crushing loneliness. Not a word of it to anyone, because she was technically one of the lucky ones. A flush retirement account, and 4 months maternity leave. In Jesus' name, amen. And in the world that Rena would soon inhabit, you don't get to complain about those kinds of problems. You don't get to complain about privilege. It was clear Rena was dreading it. Not just the internship, but the rest of her own life. As if she had been shot through by some fairy tale curse. As if she wasn't one of the most spoiled people on the planet, free to do whatever she wanted. If only she had the brains or the courage to consider any other path forward beyond the one that feminism, that nasty witch, had offered her. Silly, stupid Rena had bitten the poisoned apple straight down to the core. Standing there that day, she looked so miserable at the prospect of her own empowered future that I nearly laughed out loud. That was a lot to read. Yeah, so she will go on these diatribes. We heard it earlier about Vanessa. We hear it now about Rena. This is like professional level projecting, right? Now, is there some truth in what she said? Yes, right? Speaking as like corporate girly in a male-dominated field, hey man, a lot of that shit is true. A lot of that shit is very hard and difficult and frustrating as a woman in those spaces. But it's worth it, and it's fulfilling, and like everybody makes do. Everybody has struggles in some capacity, and like you pick your battles, right? You pick the shit that that you have to deal with to some degree. If you are one of the privileged ones and you have the choice to pick your life path, none of them are obstacle free. Okay, but this is like crazy levels of I, I think what it is Natalie trying to justify her choices, right? Of like, Natalie could have been Irina. And so her talking about how miserable Rena will be is like helping her confirm her choices to get married and have a baby at 19 years old. Right? Like, this is all just to like help her feel better about her life choices. More so than this is any type of reflection of Rena's actual life or Rena's feelings about her life or anything to do with that. This is all internal Natalie problems, right? God, that's crazy. It's so often these, like I said, diatribes, these rants happen. And that's where the book started to get a little old, where I was like, okay, I get it, dude. I get the internalized Christian feelings of whatever you want to call this. I don't know the right wording, but right? I'm like, I get it. And then also we keep going back to the cabin or the 1805 era. And I'm like, okay, I get it. I get it. That's pretty much my only beef with the book, was how many times I said that internally. Chapter 11 is pretty much a confirmation of what I was just saying, because she recounts having a nightmare. In this nightmare, she is just constantly and repeatedly giving birth and going through the pain of giving birth. But it's like the doctors don't have eyes and the babies don't have any feet, and all of the babies come out screaming mama, and it's like a body horror nightmare thing that she's having that is pretty much like the confirmation of her worst nightmares of like, this is all she's here to do, is to give birth to these babies. And the unsettling realization that this is all she is, and this is the life that she signed up for. In this particular instance, this isn't obviously all Christian relationships or all Christian marriages or whatever, but this particular case and these feelings she's having is that the life she chose is to be nothing more than a vessel to give birth and spread God's word. She is no longer Natalie. She is this child's mom, or she is Caleb's wife. You know what I'm saying? And in chapter 12, when we get her thoughts on when she did give birth, the first time that she gave birth to Clementine, she very, 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 very clearly is immediately suffering from like postpartum depression. And like even leading up to giving birth, she is going through some wild, bad emotions, right? And she, like, her body is not handling this whole baby thing very well. And the second that she gives birth and she looks at Clementine, she can just feel like how evil this child is. She's like, she looks nothing like me, even though everybody keeps saying it. And I look into her beady little eyes and there's no life behind them. And she's just evil. And she tries to maybe have this discussion with her mom. And the nurse is in the room when this is happening. And she's telling her mom of like, I just don't feel anything for this kid. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't feel like I'm ready for this. And the mom is like, honey, you just need to work on your endorphins, okay? How about you just need to go for a run, you know? You used to love running. How about you just run again? That'll make you feel better. The nurse in the corner is like, hey, you're not. You cannot run. You literally have like a 3rd-degree tear down there and you're all stitched up and you just gave birth. You're not running. What the fuck are you saying, Mom? She needs medication. Like, she needs to be treated for this postpartum depression. Oh, honey, you're fine. You'll be okay. And so at shift change, her mom helps her sneak out with some sneakers to go for a run around the hospital. Obviously, she pulls her stitches and she's bleeding everywhere and she like collapses in pain and stuff. And the mom just reassures her. She's like, don't worry, honey. It's not a mistake. You know, you'll get used to it. You gotta fake it till you make it. You gotta get up. You gotta be a mom. You don't have a choice. You made your decisions. You're here. You gotta deal with it. Get it together. And that's about the extent of the support that she gets. It hurts me so bad. Back to 1805, Natalie. What is she up to, you ask? Well, she's gotta go to work. It doesn't matter that you got a broke-ass foot. You gotta get to work. You gotta help out around the farm. Especially because nothing's actually broken. It's just very, very achy, sore, and she doesn't really have medicine for it. But she wakes up and there's like a walking stick by the door to help her walk around. And Maeve comes to get her and they go out to the chicken coop together to go and feed the chickens. On the way out there, she kicks a little piece of plastic and she realizes that it is a lapel microphone. So like one of the little clip-on ones that clips onto your shirt. What? is a microphone doing an 1805. And so she's like, okay, so obviously I didn't time travel. This can't be a different universe. This is still my house. And I have a microphone. She's like, I must be on a reality TV show. I must be being recorded right now. Like, that has to be what's happening. Yeah, I mean, hey, crazier things have happened. In chapter 14, we are getting Natalie's experience postpartum, right? Like we said, she is feeling a lot of disconnect from her child. She is feeling a lot of disconnect from Caleb, and she's realizing how much of a mistake it was to marry him and how much she does not know him at all. And one of the gifts that he gives her upon her return from the hospital is a pair of running shoes and like a baby carrier so she can take the baby on a run with her. This was the moment the crisis became clear to me. This was the moment I realized my husband was an actual honest-to-God idiot. When he suggested with all sincerity in the world that I might like to bring our 2-week-old newborn on me with a jog. I imagined Clementine's tiny brain bouncing like a bruised fruit in her Play-Doh skull while I stumbled through an asthma attack on some nearby sidewalk, phone to my ear, waiting for someone at home to pick up. On one of our earlier dates, Caleb said that he wasn't book smart, but that wasn't the full truth, was it? The full truth was that he wasn't anything smart. He was a nice, dumb, rich kid. And what did that make me? A fool. An embarrassment of a woman. At the most important moment in my life, I'd made a critical error of judgment. I'd mistaken a man's wealth for his intellect. I'd assumed that Caleb's presence at Harvard justified some sort of success of critical thinking skills, but I hadn't considered until now that he'd gotten in on the worth of his last name alone. The realization filled my mouth with bright, acidic flavor, like I'd swallowed some sort of lemon-scented disinfectant. I blinked rapidly, my eyes stinging. A girl like Irina never would have made a mistake like this. My husband was an idiot. Worse, there was absolutely nothing to be done about it. In the world that I come from, divorce was a German word that translated loosely to a lifetime of destitution and misery followed by an eternity in hell. You didn't leave your husband if he slapped you in the face, or had an affair, or set you up on a weekly allowance so sparse that you snapped at your children when they spilled a glass of milk. And you certainly didn't leave your husband if he was just some dumb rich guy. Oof. Oof. I know I did that earlier as a reaction to a section, but that's literally just how I felt so often in this book when portions like that would happen, where I was just like, ah. The idea and the stress of having to live this kind of life, I just can't. It hurts me so bad. 1805 Natalie, finding this microphone. Someone is watching me, I know it. In fact, I don't just know it, I feel it too, deep in my gut. Every move I make is being logged somewhere. Every action recorded, every word transcribed. There's an artifice to the... Is that how you... It's artifice? Like artificial, but it's F-I-C-E at the end. To this world, a subtle glimmer of surreality at the edges. It feels less like real life and more like an idea of real life, less like reality and more like a reality show. And then she's like, surely a reality show wouldn't allow me to get punched in the face by my husband, or the little trap thing to snap at my ankle and me to get stitches with bacon grease. That can't be a thing. Like, if somebody's watching, they would have intervened by now. And then she realizes, no, they wouldn't. America hates women. They would get off on that. They would love to see that type of suffering happen to a woman. I must be on a reality TV show. Cut back to Natalie and Caleb's marriage, when she's like basically begging him to get a job and him saying no. And he's like, how about, we could just move to Rome. Like, let's just move across the world. Or I could buy a farm. How about we just buy a farm and go and do that? And she is horrified by his lack of ambition. She's horrified by him not wanting to do something with his life and being happy just sitting around living on his dad's dime. That was it, the moment I lost my patience. So I did what any good Christian woman would do when she can no longer bear to do nothing. I went to my mother in tears, and she instructed me to call his mother in tears, and then his mother called him in a hurricane of humiliation and fury. And this resulted in his parents having them come and live with them, right? So Caleb, Natalie, the baby, move in with Caleb's parents at their really rich, fancy estate to basically have like a rehabilitation for Caleb. Time passes. nothing progresses, right? He's just bumming around the house. Gets to a point where he's in the shower one day and she goes on his laptop to do something and she sees one of his tabs up and sees that he is watching adult content, and she realizes my wagon is hitched to a sex pervert. She's like, I hate this guy. He can't even like have relations with me or like have intercourse with me, and it's so gross every time. And then no wonder, because he's off watching this stuff and being a deviant. Living with Caleb's parents culminates when they have an intervention with her, and it's pretty much a discussion between them where it's like they were waiting for her to correct their son's behavior, and she was waiting hoping that they would correct his son's behavior. And so now they're like, hey, Natalie, you need to step up. Like, you need to be the man, right? You basically, you need to be the man of this relationship and force him to get a job. He's obviously not going to do this on his own. Like, it's your responsibility as the wife to keep your husband on track. So figure out however you want to do that, this is an interesting highlight that I have for that discussion that she's having with his parents. My husband wanted too little from his life, and me, I wanted too much. Suddenly, it was so obvious. Caleb should have been born a woman, and I should have been born a man. A sad sickness turned my stomach. We were equally broken in that way. Ugh. I can't stop making that noise. I can't stop having that reaction to some of these passages, bro. And so she ends up having a bet with Caleb's dad, where she's like, I'll make a man out of him, okay? Like, I'll figure it out. Caleb doesn't need your jobs. Because the dad is like, hey, I know some people. I'm a politician. I've got some connections. I've got some folks that'll hire him. And, you know, he can be a manager at one of these farms or whatever. I'll set him up with something. And she decides, she has her little Zen moment. You know, God talks to her or whatever. And she's like, I can do this. I'm going to be a good, godly woman. And it's my responsibility. I'm going to step up and I'll take care of it. And so her and his dad end up like making a deal, making a bet about who is going to help Caleb be a better person. Okay. 1805, Natalie ends up going for a walk with one of the boys. So in this world reality show, whatever that we're in, there's the 13-year-old Mary. We talked about Maeve, who's like 5. And then there's 2 boys. I think one's like about to be 13 and one's like 10 or something. She ends up going for a walk with one of the boys, and they walk down that road, the same one that she tried to run away on earlier. But now she's like, I have a cane, guys. Like, I'm literally just hobbling around, okay? I'm just wanting to walk around and just get some daylight. And so the one son walks with her and keeps her company. So they get to the end of the road, and then the son is like, hey, we have to turn around. Like, all there is beyond here is evil, right? There's just bad stuff, Mom. We got to go back. She says, no, we can go a little bit further, honey. And she's asking him about like a highway. And he goes running back. And then old Caleb starts running toward her. And again, she is now being like confronted with trying to run away. And it's just not going very well. She is not able to escape this situation. Early marriage to Caleb, Natalie. We get flashbacks of her working on his resume. And she's taking it upon herself to write all of his resumes and apply for all of these jobs for him. And Caleb's mother reveals to her about Mother's little helper and gives her some makeup to go and freshen up. And it's pretty much the nicest way possible What an elegant little ambush. Amelia, which is his mom's name, might as well have scrawled the true meaning in all caps. Lipstick across the mirror. Pull yourself together, you selfish little freak. Awesome. So his mom's just telling her to put on makeup and get it together while she's over here taking care of the baby and doing all this stuff, and then like applying for jobs on Caleb's behalf. And so at her breaking point, at her wit's end with everything, she calls her mom again for some advice, because her mom always had it together, right? And Natalie always admired that about her mom. She's like, you were a single mom, working 2 jobs, taking care of your daughters, doing all this stuff. Like, how did you manage it? How were you able to just get all of this done and not ever lose your mind? And the mom says, well, you know, honey, I would imagine I was being watched. It's lonely, housework, but it felt a bit less lonely when I pretended that I had a little audience sitting on the couch with me, watching me vacuum and take out the trash, cheering me on. And she's like, and honestly, it's kind of true, right? Like, God is the original audience member. God's always watching. So I just extended it a little bit, and I just imagined like I was on a TV show and everyone was just cheering me along, and that's how I did it. That's how I got through life. Thanks, Mom. Thanks. After this great advice, Caleb ends up coming home saying that he found his job, he found his calling and what he wants to do. He wants to be a substitute kindergarten teacher. She is mortified. And he's like, no, this is great. The woman's on maternity leave and I can just substitute for the next couple of months and then I can get a thing and I can just go and work there. And you know how much I love kids. I love being around kids. This is perfect for me. And she ends up talking him into and manipulating him into wanting to be a cowboy. She's like, don't you remember that conversation when we first got married about having the farm and doing all that? She's like, don't you want to do that? Don't you want to be a farmer, a cowboy? What she's wanting to do is to get him to be a cowboy, because even if he wasn't good at it, like he just needs to learn how to pretend, right? The same way that she's pretending everything. If he can just fake it, this cowboy thing, that's so masculine. That's so strong and cool and a respectable thing to be, I guess. Something that she would be like proud of. And so she ends up settling on this. She hears the chorus of angels as she comes to this realization, and she can feel God in the room with her and his light upon her as she realizes that this is the path forward. This is what God was calling her to do, was to remake her husband into a cowboy. Okay. And in my notes, I binged this book up until this point, and suddenly I am so effing bored. And the other way too, this is actually crazy. The way that she talks Caleb out of being a kindergarten teacher is she's like, haven't you heard what they're teaching in schools these days? They teach little white children to feel guilty about the fact that our country used to have slaves. My public school didn't teach this, but I'd heard of other schools that had, or rather my mother had heard about it from another woman at a church bake sale who had heard about it from her sister's best friend, who was principal at an afflicted middle school in California or Maryland or Canada. My mother, or the woman or her sister, could never quite remember where. Yeah, of course. We'll unpack that a little bit more as we go. In chapter 23, it's back to the 1805 timeline, or the reality. Again, I'm so confused about how to reference these timelines, because it's like modern day Natalie and then present day Natalie that is now in the past. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just going to keep saying, I guess, like the pioneer times, or the 1805 or something. Whatever. Miss Broke Ankle over here, she's now on house arrest, where they're like tying sheets in a figure 8 around her ankles, where like she just has to like hobble around and waddle around so she can't run away anymore. And Mary ends up giving her a tonic that puts her to sleep, like makes her pass out. And then she's feeling great after that. She's like basically poisoning her with like these mother's little helper pills type of thing that we talked about before, whatever the, I don't know, version of it that would have been back then, whatever type of plant to make her a little happy sleepy lady. So with this guidance from God that Caleb needs to be a cowboy, she begins looking at properties, finds this beautiful, perfect, many acreage farm ranch thing out in Idaho and bids on it. She even like calls the guy who's selling it to try to talk him into it, to sell it to her and her family and how they're growing and they want to have all these like good, strong values and blah, blah, blah. Very manipulative stuff to get this property. $5 million ranch. She goes to Caleb's dad and she's like, hey, I figured out what to do. I think your son would be really interested in this. I think this is really supportive of your whole, family American thing. If we're going out and we're being farmers, I think this is perfect. And he would be hardworking and we'll take care of it. And if you give me $5 million, I can buy the property. And then it gives them enough money to keep the farm like sustained for 3 years. So I don't think the property is actually $5 million, but that's how much of like a loan or like payment. But it's not even a loan. It's not even like a pay me back. It's just like a a check from the dad for $5 million so they can go and move into this thing. Freaking crazy. And so the dad is like, yeah, great. That's a great idea. But I'm going to give you this money on one condition, that you have a big American family with my son, right? Pretty much like you pop out kids for my son and you help like spread my name and like our family, whatever, out in the world. Have a bunch of babies. And she agrees to this because what choice does she have, right? She's either going to be embarrassed in her husband not doing anything and just staying at this like really crappy living situation, or they take a chance. She has more kids, gets more stuck with this man, and goes and lives on this farm. So they go through with it. They get it. They move out there. She immediately creates an Instagram account and calls it Yesteryear Farm. And that's like or Yesteryear Ranch, rather. And that's like the name of it. And then the name of the Instagram handle. And she takes a photo of them and posts it up on there about like, oh, so happy. And she refers to it as like a thirst trap. Not in like a traditional like sexual way, but in a everybody is jealous and wants to be me or wants my life way of like trying to brag about this giant, beautiful farm and family and whatnot that she's going to be building. And within the first like 3 years of the ranch's existence, she only posts 6 photos on Instagram. And we're finding this out through more of these little interview pieces that are like interspersed, trickled through these interview things that are happening chunk by chunk through the book, okay? That's where we're finding out a lot of this information. I'm not specifying because I don't care to. It's so confusing to say out loud. But during this time, Caleb becomes obsessed with this whole farm thing. And he's not very good at it, right? And so he's on all of these forums. He's asking all of these questions and ends up getting kicked out of the regular, actual, helpful farmer ones because he's asking so many silly questions and not taking it seriously, and people are getting pissed off that he's taking on so many responsibilities, like to the point that like the first week there, he adopts a cow and then it ends up dying and he buys like 5 more, and all of them just keep dying so quickly because he doesn't know what he's doing and how to take care of it. And so he ends up having to like pick up some workers to help him and bring them onto the ranch to bury these cows because it's suspicious if you report so many deaths of animals or something. Like there's some crazy stuff going on here, okay? And like there's weird ways that like workers are talked about and that like immigrants are talked about and like exploiting your farm workers and your workers in general. Like it's just like there's like very icky rich people talk and the way that rich people view like working class folks that is very gross and painful to read. And again, is like just reaffirming my dislike for this narrator. But anyway, he ends up getting kicked off of those forums because they're so, like, everybody's so frustrated of helping him. And so he ends up on these, like, DIY ones. And slowly but surely, he's ending up in these, like, more obscure, almost like doomsday prepper, suspicious, like, you know what I mean? The fluoride in the water's turning the frogs gay type forums, if you're picking up what I'm putting down. He is slowly ending up in that realm of the internet, while she is ending up in the realm of the internet of social media, right? Time has passed, nothing has happened. Caleb still sucks at being a ranch guy, and they need to make money. And so she decides that she's going to make money through social media. And she, at this time, wants to have another kid, because that's part of all of this, is to continue building their family. Especially if they're about to hit the 3-year mark and be out of this $5 million, she has to at least produce a kid for Caleb's dad in that deal that they had. So she tells him, she gives him a cup and she's like, I don't care what you have to do, take this and do whatever. And he goes to the bathroom and he comes back out with a cup of stuff and she gets a turkey baster and she gets herself pregnant. At the same time, she posts like a photo on her Instagram for the first time in a couple years talking about like praising their growing family or something. Oh my God. Oh my God. This is all just going so downhill. In chapter 28, her sister comes to visit the farm, right? they're doing good. A little bit more time has passed. Natalie's Instagram has really taken off. They've been doing really, really great and maintaining everything, and the farm is growing. And so she invites her mom and sister to come and visit. Her sister is now married to a guy and has been, and she has a couple kids running around, and they just don't talk very much, and they haven't seen each other very much. But she comes to visit. And immediately Natalie is horrified by how much her sister has aged and how depressed she looks. And the sister opens up and she's like, I think I'm going to leave my husband. I think I want a divorce. Natalie snaps and says some of the most hurtful things ever. And I'll read it to you just so, again, you can understand. Where I'm like, sometimes I pity this woman and I feel bad for her. And then she says stuff like this, and I'm like, oh, no, you're still like a bad person, right? You can be put into a lifestyle and into a situation where you are led to believe you're better than other people, and you're kind of like set up to inherently be an asshole to people. But ultimately, it's on you to like perpetuate that and believe it and actively practice the act of being an asshole. And this is one of those times, and yeah, you'll understand. So she goes back to her sister, pretty much critiquing her sister for even having the thought of divorcing a guy. And she says, I'm not surprised that you're thinking that, but you can't. And I'm not surprised that you want a divorce from your husband because your husband is mean and dumb and drinks too much. He probably calls you names in front of the children. He probably hits you sometimes. I paused, waiting for Abigail, her sister, to confirm or deny this hypothesis, but she remained silent, her expression so still, so fathomless in its depth that it looked like a great body of water at night. And so I went on, ignoring the terrifying stillness of my sister's face, ignoring, too, the horrified expression of my mother's. Lord save us all. He's lazy, too, and he's never done anything with that shop. It's like a car repair shop that he owns. That man is and has always been a loser, and now it's becoming harder for you to bear. And so now you, my poor sister, have somehow gotten it into your head that you will be better off without him. And I'm sorry, Abigail, but you will not. My mother's hand was still pressed against her heart. The children, she kept saying, the children, less a phrase than a pulse. The children will be fine, Abigail said angrily, and I will be. You will be a single mother of 5 living on food stamps, I snapped. That's what you will be. You don't even have a job history, Abigail. My God, you'd be lucky if they hired you to bag groceries with the teenagers in town. So obviously her sister kind of like folds within herself and begins crying because she's like, you're right. I don't have anything. I can't leave him. I'm stuck here. Like I'm stuck in this marriage that's miserable and my kids are having to witness this terrible relationship and I'm stuck. Oh my God. And so with this though, right, with this, comments about her sister, potentially being a single mom on food stamps. Natalie remembers she herself has no legal rights to Yesteryear Ranch. The ranch is entirely in Caleb's name. So, if she were to divorce him or try to leave him, she too would be a single mother on food stamps. Right? By her own definition, whatever, okay? I hate the way that's phrased. Don't look at me. I'm quoting the book. And so this goes back to my whole thing of like projection and this like anger at herself for being in a situation like that and then like taking it out on other people or like, you know what I'm saying? Like taking out this frustration with the world against her sister. Caleb's name and Caleb's name alone will be on the deed of the ranch. That was part of the deal. It was a small asterisk to our original gentleman's agreement from the dad that she had, or from the deal with the dad that she had. An impossible thing to imagine. What might happen if my husband ever paused and thought about the governing law of his own starry universe? His wife might as well have been a farm dog for all the rights she had. Even the sweetest, stupidest man can grow cruel and cunning when he learns a thing like that. Ugh, another banger of a sentence. Another banger of an idea. That's so crazy. Speaking of cruel husbands, I've been skipping a lot of the flashbacks to 1805, but we'll visit this one. Back in 1805, old Caleb talks to her for the first time in a couple days, and he's like, hey, I'm going to sleep in our bedroom tonight. Because he's left her alone. She's been sleeping in the bed by herself, and he's been sleeping in the boys' room. After she got injured and been freaking out and just acting like a weirdo, he's just been giving her space and time to heal and whatnot. But he's like, no, I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna sleep in bed with you tonight. And I don't like hitting you. I don't like that you make me hit you. And she is just realizing in this like whirlwind that her role is to have as many kids as possible, and that this life or this reality show or this experience, whatever it is that's happening right now to her, this must be a test from the Lord. I don't know what he's testing. I don't know what he's wanting. I don't know what the right answer is or what the purpose of this is, but it has to be a test from the Lord. So I'm going to do everything I can to pass it, but I will not get pregnant here. Because that's kind of the underlying or underpinning thing, right? Of old Caleb sleeping in bed with her that night is he's going to R her, basically, and try to have more kids, right? And so that's where all these thoughts are coming from, too. And so when he does come in there that night and R's her, she interprets the assault as a test from God. And there's some really weird descriptions and things that are going on in her mind to try to be okay with this moment. And then after he falls asleep, she goes out to the kitchen to clean herself up, promising herself that she will not get pregnant here. She will not allow herself to get pregnant here. She refuses. Okay. Jesus Christ. Back to modern day Natalie. She's still grinding on this whole Instagram thing, right? It's doing okay, but she's had a couple controversies come up. For example, one of the photos that had gotten posted, you could see some pesticide in the background of the photo, and supposedly all of their food is organic and everything is supposed to be ultra healthy from the earth. And so to have these pesticides is a big deal. And she internally is speaking incredibly negatively of the workers of the farm, and that it's their fault that this pesticide was left out in this picture. And she ends up hearing about it from her mom, that her friends back home are all gossiping about her. And it's just a lot of drama. To feel better about everything, she takes a couple more of the quote unquote thirst traps of the farm and being happy here and how wonderful her life is to post on social media, and then gets the turkey baster and knocks herself up again. And so it's very clear that she has this incredibly toxic relationship with Instagram and social media in general about what she portrays on there, and that being the life that she wants. Again, the whole, I guess, dichotomy of real life Natalie versus online Natalie, and what's real and what's not, and this happiness in portraying and blah, blah, blah. There's some crazy, I don't know, psychoanalysis stuff that you could be doing right now. But she's posting on there for validation, right? She's posting on there to feel better about her life and how much it feels like it's falling apart and how frustrating everything is. Back in 1805, the younger daughter and Natalie end up sewing or knitting some hats for the chickens. It's a very cute mother-daughter bonding time. That night, Mary, she had gone off into the woods to find mushrooms or something, and she was gone all day, a lot longer than they expected her to be. And when she gets home, it looks like she saw a ghost. And it never gets talked about what she saw. And so if anybody has read this book, if you've been able to figure it out, please let me know. Because I don't know what she saw. She's just acting really, really weird. And so Natalie tries to talk to her because she's like, hey, are you okay? What's going on? And Mary snaps at her and calls her Natalie, which is weird and completely breaks this whole illusion, right? Of you're supposed to be my daughter. You should be calling me mom. Why are you calling me by my first name? The confirmation, I guess, right? That she's on this reality show and there's just something not right. There's some crazy stuff happening. Whatever that is, whatever the hell that means. In chapter 32, Natalie takes a social media course to get even better at Instagram and to help it really take off and get traction. Pays $1,500 for the social media lady to tell her what to do to get famous, okay? I'll talk about that and read you some quotes about that, but that's that idea of now she's well, this is how I'm going to make money on this farm and get better and blah, 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 continue to grow this farm as she takes this course. And the lady's name is Tammy. She's the person who runs the course. Tammy's talking points flowed zippily along from reassurance to damnation to jubilance. I could practically feel the collective psychic weight of 100 relatively gullible women trying to hold so many contradicting truths in their brain at one time. Everything they had to succeed was already inside them, but also they needed to pay this woman in order to succeed. And a truly successful social media sales cycle should happen effortlessly. It should happen in our sleep, and yet we needed to start reclaiming some of our own time from our families so that we could commit ourselves to the effort. And the point of this course was to remind women to sink further into their own divine Christian feminine. And also, it was time to develop some hard masculine skills, ladies. It was time to learn some math. And then it ends with, emotions need to come across as totally authentic. Why don't you practice smiling in the mirror? It sounds silly, but it works. You have no clue how you look to others. Which, the idea of like practicing authenticity in that way is crazy. And I just want you to know that these courses happen in real life. There's plenty of people that pay a lot of money to try to crack the social media to crack the social media code, and who pay a lot and fake a lot to seem as authentic as they are on the internet. Which I think people clock it pretty fast of when somebody's like pretending to be real versus somebody who like is actually being genuine. I think I say that, but then there's like so many people that I watch that I'm like, oh my God, this person's fake AF, right? Or they're like trying to sell like a shill for something, but they have millions of followers. So I'm like, maybe they did crack a code. Maybe I'm just a judgmental bitch. I don't know. This stuff's crazy. I cannot believe people pay money for that though. So she takes the lessons learned from this, starts to implement the changes recommended by this social media lady, gets a little bit of traction. But that's not what breaks her into like virality. What gets her into virality is that Caleb and all of those DIY farmer message boards that I was talking about and forums and whatnot had been talking about Natalie, had been talking about their farm, had been sharing her social media page, and had just been like putting it out there of what she was doing and how proud he was of the farm, and this is what they were helping him with, and blah, blah, blah. And one day he's like, Natalie, come here, you have to see this. And he pulls up his computer, and there's a guy talking on the screen, and he has like a video, like an inlay of her Instagram. And it's this guy on this talk show, this like really popular, millions of subscribers, manosphere talk show, talking about how much of a wholesome Aryan wife that she is. And so as this guy is live talking about this to these people, and she and Caleb are watching this guy, and all the chat is like exploding with like how beautiful she is and how much of a good wife she is and like admirable and blah, blah, blah. She goes to her Instagram and she like refreshes it, and 22,000 subscribers, refreshed, 24, refreshed again, 28. And just as I was beginning to process what that man had said, he said that I looked exhausted and beautiful. Did I look exhausted, and why was that a good thing? And he had said I bake all of our bread from scratch. I could count on one hand the number of times that I had done so in my life. The picture I'd shared on my account of a sourdough loaf had been one that I had picked up from the store. He was talking now about my kitchen, saying that I didn't use microwaves because they were radioactive and caused cancer. I thought the microwave in our pantry was ugly, and so it was hidden from view. And I quietly said, I think there might have been a mistake here. Over the next 24 hours, I would gain over 300,000 followers. I was so stunned by the number that it took me quite a bit longer to realize how many of them were angry. This shit is so fake, lol. This woman looks miserable. Religious cult alert, ding, ding, ding. This is not real life. Over coffee the next day, Caleb and I scrolled through the comments silently. Wow, he said finally, that's a lot of angry women. And so that's where her referring to all of her online haters as angry women stemmed from. So now any type of critique that they receive, it's just from the angry women who are inherently jealous of her life or whatever the hell she's spewing now. But so that's where her virality came from, is she ended up on this freaking toxic manosphere talk show that presented her in a way that dude, that's crazy. That's crazy. Like, it's just crazy, objectively, to pop off in such a way of something that you aren't, right? Like, She does use a microwave. She doesn't do sourdough. But that's kind of what she was trying to sell, right? Like, she was selling the image of it, so you can't be surprised when people believe it. And then now you're under the obligation to continue maintaining this image, and then it creates this whole, like, feedback loop. And now you're this, like, toxic content creator perpetuating these crazy beliefs and, like, feeding into this, like, really unhealthy dynamics in message boards and forums and whatever. Good Lord. And so with all of a sudden, I think she had like 20,000 and then immediately 300,000, like the next day. She gets like an Amazon tripod and she starts like filming cooking tutorials and realizes that she can't, right? Like, she is not going to be able to manage the kids and making content for social media to keep these people happy and like perpetuating this image. And so this is where hiring the nannies come in. And she realizes once they hire the first nanny, she's like, I am never going to have to be alone with my children again. And that gives her so much joy. This is sad. This is so sad. And so while this is happening, right, she starts making absolute bank on Instagram. She's putting away 20% into like this secret other bank account that like her husband doesn't know about, because she's like, you know, I have to, because he's not gonna know how to spend his money, or he would just blow through it anyway. So like, I have to keep it hidden. Honey, you're making an escape plan. You're subconsciously, you saw your sister and you knew that his name's the only one on the ranch, and you were bitching to your sister about how she's going to be alone with all these kids. You're making an exit plan. You don't want to call it that. You don't want to say that that's what's happening, but 100% that's what's going on. And, oh yeah, here you go. Here is some really good quotes actually about this whole thing. So I'll read you this. It was like my father-in-law said, a good politician doesn't change his policies, just the messaging. A good influencer doesn't change herself, just the packaging. And while Tammy Lane and Cassidy and Ashley Ann and Robin and all those other idiot women hadn't understood the key to perfect packaging, the bearded man certainly had. The day he did that live stream, he offered a crash course in marketing that was literally priceless. He taught me how to market myself, and as a double whammy, he taught the audience how to love me. So she is just embracing this misleading nature of her virality, okay? The goal of an influencer is to not be lovable, and it is not to be unbearable. The goal is to be both at once. In other words, addicting. It's also interesting. And then she was scrolling through all of her messages and stuff that she had on Instagram and like message requests. And I scrolled past a name I recognized. I paused, then clicked on the message request. Hey, Natalie, it's Rena Magliotti from college. Random, but I'm an intern at America News now, and I didn't know if you would ever want to do a Q&A with me. I know you hadn't done any interviews yet, but it could be a fun reunion. Let me know. I let out a little huff of amusement. Poor thing. She must really have swallowed her pride to write that message. And to be an intern at 27? Yikes. Keep in mind, she's on her 5th kid, I believe. Contextually. Her 5th kid at her $5 million farm that she didn't have to pay for. Living off the money and viral followers and stuff that she has for something that she didn't have to actually work for. I mean, obviously she was working for it, but the popularity that she had nothing to do with. Taking care of kids that she's not taking care of. Living on a farm that her and her husband aren't taking care of. But yeah, Rena's the problem. Rena's the problem. Chapter 37, back to 1805, Natalie. Her and old Caleb are now regularly doing it, but she, again, has taken this on as like a test of God, and she's like getting into it in a way that's like being presented to the reader, and noting how this is the first time that she's ever been like actually pleasured by a man, because her husband Caleb didn't care and wasn't good at it, and that was the only man that she'd ever been with. And so I don't know, there's some like really weird conflicting things happening in messaging and the way that this is all getting talked about that feels really, really icky. But what matters out of this, then one morning I wake up and I realize 2 things simultaneously. It's been 2 months since old Caleb slapped me that cold, dark morning, and I haven't gotten my period. So she might actually be pregnant. God, the idea, A, of giving birth in general, but also of giving birth in this era. Oh my God. Back to influencer Natalie. In addition to hiring the nannies, she hires Shannon, right? Who is nothing like what she would usually hire. And she can't believe Shannon would even apply for this job because she's kind of described as essentially just some like yuppie from California with pink hair who she's like, I don't even know why she would apply for this. It seems like our lives and our lifestyles would like completely contradict each other. But Shannon comes on board and comes for the interview and tells Natalie that she's like a feminist icon because she was able to break away from like the corporate world and that like living off the grid and having your own farm and making money on the internet and doing all this stuff, like that's the epitome of feminism. And that's like you're doing your own thing and got out of the rat race. So she really admires Natalie. And so then she gives her a tour of the house and is breaking the illusion, right? Because again, on social media, it has always been portrayed that it's just her handling all of this. And so as they're going around the house and Shannon is seeing the nannies, the workers, the pesticides, the microwave, all of these things that completely break this illusion of what Natalie is online. But she agrees to take the job. Natalie feels uncomfortable with being confronted at this idea of being not two-faced necessarily, but like having two projections of herself. And so she goes through her Instagram and realizes that her sister isn't following her on Instagram anymore. And so she calls her sister to try to figure out why and to see how she's doing. And it's not really seeing how she's doing. She basically just wants to, I guess, rub it in her sister's face that she's doing well. I don't know. It's so weird. And so I've said sister so many times lately. I'm so sorry. I know it's annoying. She is like, yeah, obviously I know you're doing well on Instagram. I just don't want to follow it, okay? It's just confusing. The way that you act on that account, it makes me feel like I'm having a stroke. Like someone body snatched my only sister. That's a little bit dramatic, Abigail. Okay, maybe it is, but it's how I feel. I've been going to therapy, and therapy? Yeah, therapy. I told Mama she should go too, and she said she would consider it. Who's paying for therapy? Is it that man you've been seeing, Ben? Because Abigail, who the fuck is that? Abigail did divorce her husband and she had to move back in with her mom. And so now mom, sister, and the grandkids are all living together. And so Natalie feels superior to this, right? Because, hey, look at that. Sis, I told you, and you went through with the divorce and now you are bagging groceries at the store with all the teenagers and living on food stamps and stuff. Like my worst nightmare came true through you. And so she's just kind of like rubbing her sister's nose in it in like a really weird way. And so then they have this whole back and thing about therapists. And she essentially says, my therapist says that it's fine that I don't follow you online. Anyways, I have to go. Give hugs to the kids and Caleb for me, okay? And then she hangs up. Pretty much immediately after that conversation, she goes into the kitchen and Caleb is there. And he says, hey, Nat, have you ever heard of Quick Cash? I feigned uncertainty. I think it's the name of the payment processing system for Instagram. Are we making money on Instagram? There it was. The single word that I had been dreading. We. I guess we did this month. I said with as much stupid housewife energy as I could muster. Wow. Sorry. What about the month before? Oh. My gaze cast across the kitchen as if the correct answer might present itself to me. I'm not sure. I guess I'd have to go online and check. Well, I spoke to our accountants and they said the money, that $80,000 was scheduled to go into some random banking account I didn't have access to, which must have been some sort of mistake, right? He was looking hard at me now, like he didn't believe that I was real. She's like, pregnancy brain. Yeah, that's what I thought. Pregnancy brain. So anyways, I asked them to see if any other payments had been forwarded to that bank account. And what do you know? They had. Every payment from Quick Cash for the last 4 months has gone into that account. He laughed. That's a whole lot of pregnancy brain. I was feeling very cold now. Anyways, they fixed it, so the money will go straight into our official LLC account from now on. The problem was that Caleb couldn't be trusted with money. Really, he couldn't. He'd spent it on all manner of stupid things for the farm, which is why I called Instagram support that night, waiting 45 minutes on hold to speak with a human to ask if they could split the incoming payments before they even hit my checking account. Yes, I told them in a whisper, that's right. I wanted to split the payments between the checking account and another one I had just opened. For Caleb, of course. I was doing it for him. So now he knows about this other account and this little escape plan thing that she is having. Supposedly, not an escape plan. Of course not. Why would she ever do that? 1805 Natalie is, upon the realization that she is pregnant, is freaking out, and she doesn't understand this test from the Lord. And so she ends up going on strike, like a one-woman union goes on her own strike and refuses to do anything around the house. And she's just kind of like moping and wallowing that this is her life and that she has to be pregnant in this era and deal with all of this stuff, and just absolutely like refuses to leave her bed. Modern day Natalie is about to go to her father-in-law's presidential rally. It is time for Senator to become the president or try to run for it. And so Caleb, her, all their kids, the nannies, Shannon, they all show up to this rally to garner support. You know, she has had this argument many times with him that she won't like directly endorse him on her social media profile, but she'll post about going to the rallies to give like inherent support and make it like a family ordeal and supporting family aspect, but she won't get political on her page in a way to like directly, you know, support him. Does that make sense? Like, really weird. And so at this rally, Shannon gets very uncomfortable because Shannon realizes that the father-in-law is quoting direct language from the Instagram page from Yesteryear. And then he starts saying some like wild, like racist, classist type stuff, and it gets really scary language really, really quickly. And Shannon gets freaked out and wants to leave, and so she like tries to run away basically to the car and waits in there and ends up confronting Natalie of like, do you actually believe any of this? You support what he's saying right now? Natalie's like, I wasn't even listening. I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't. And she's like, no, Natalie, he's literally using your messaging from your social media platform. Like, he's using your words and your stuff to like market himself. Like, what are you talking about? How are you not aware of what's going on? And she wasn't, genuinely. The father-in-law had just like stolen her ideas to try to appeal to a broader demographic or a different demographic, right? Because he knew that he's just this old white guy and that he needed to be more appealing to like a younger generation and to like the moms and the whatever of the world. And so he stole her marketing styles and like language. Does that make sense? And so Natalie thinks that Shannon is going to quit after this rally and everything, but she doesn't. On the drive home, actually, Shannon decides to sit in the front seat where Caleb is driving and asks him about the farm and where he got the motivation for having the farm. And they start to bond a little bit about it all. And she goes on to also ask of like, oh, you know, how many people do you have working on the farm? Like, how many people do you have helping out? And he says that he has about 20 part-time people, give or take. It changed quite a bit on a seasonal basis. And then she begins like smiling a bunch at him and ends up taking a bunch of photos of the farm over the next like couple of days. And Natalie is realizing how much of a mistake that she has made. And this is where the show, or not the show, but like Ballerina Farms, I mentioned it at the very beginning. Just a real quick brief you on this. I'm not going to be 100% correct. Like I said, go watch whatever I have linked in the description box. Was a ballerina going to Juilliard. Her husband ended up meeting her, wanting to date. She didn't want to date until after school. His dad owns an airline, and he ended up buying a plane ticket to sit next to her when she was flying home one weekend to like force her into having a conversation and basically being on a date with him. They end up getting married while at Juilliard. She gets pregnant. She's like the only pregnant ballerina to ever have happened at the school. Ends up dropping out, ends her ballerina career. Her husband ends up buying this like super expensive ranch thing, and now they have Ballerina Farms. She has this explosive thing on social media. She's the whole sourdough mom and a bunch of child rearing and all the chickens. And this is literally, I feel like, directly inspired by her. So during all of this fame, there was a point where some newspaper came out to interview her, and they were under the impression that it was like talking about the importance of like homesteading, right? And her lifestyle and how she got here and spreading the word and blah, blah, blah. But it ended up being a little bit more of like an expose of how sad this woman's life was is kind of how it got presented, of like, look at the way her husband took advantage of her and just keeps her pregnant, and she gave up her dreams and her husband doesn't care about her and blah, blah, blah. And kind of exposing a little bit more of that world. And it was just really, really interesting. And I feel that that's kind of what's happening here too, where Natalie is seeing this young woman who doesn't seem like she would be interested in this farm is all of a sudden maybe asking a little too many questions, a little too specific of questions, and taking photos that seem like it would break the illusion of the social media life that they're presenting, right? Of Yesteryear Ranch. And so it's all just making me think of this whole ballerina situation. It hurts my heart and makes me feel weird and icky. 1805 Natalie. She looks outside one day. Caleb is walking around the property with two young guys, two neighbors. The two men have thick beards like old Caleb and are dressed similarly to him, but they are much younger. There it is, a flicker of recognition, followed by a clicking in my mind, a terrible flooding warmth. What does that mean? In chapter 42, Shannon has begun working for them, like full-time, being at the farm all the time. And they're going through one of their first days of filming together. And Natalie has to admit that even though maybe she's a little bit suspicious of Shannon and her motivations, and she just isn't vibing, she does great at filming, and she does understand angles and lighting, and she splices together these videos in like a really good, engaging way. And you just kind of have to deal with it. And everybody loves her, and she gets along with Clementine, and she just is a good fit for the family and for the situation. So Natalie, she like wakes up every day wanting to fire Shannon and then goes to bed every day grateful for her. And so there's this weird push and pull happening. There's also an interesting point that becomes relevant later where Shannon asks about the kids going to school, and Natalie says that they're homeschooled and that they are testing so much higher than like an average grade or average kid their age because of the homeschooling is like so efficient and good and stuff. And then it gets revealed that like Clementine doesn't even know what an ocean is. She only knows rivers. And so Natalie goes and she's like trying to give a little bit of like specification and stuff. And she's like, there's more than one ocean, honey. You know, there's the Atlantic, the Pacific, the Indian. I trailed off. I couldn't remember the names of the other ones. There are other ones, weren't there? 7? Or was that continents? My 11-year-old daughter gave me a look of blank distrust, and then she looked back at Shannon. What's an ocean, Shannon? Oh, no. Oh, no. We have another rally where the whole family goes to support the father-in-law's presidential run. During this one, Shannon tries to film it, and she gets caught filming the interactions with them in like one of the VIP rooms and gets like kicked out or whatever. And then she goes running away, and then Natalie tries to follow her, but she gets stopped a million times over by fans, and it's freaking her out, and she feels like very overly touched and like overwhelmed with everything. And she says the love of strangers is much more terrifying than the hate, which is also an interesting sentiment. So she gets to the car, Shannon is there. She really thinks this time around Shannon's gonna quit, but she still doesn't. Again, she sits in the front seat, and she ends up sitting up there and having a conversation with Caleb. And this time, Caleb opens up to Shannon and tells her all about his online forums as they drive home. All of his little manosphere crazy forums. And she is just eating it right up and like talking to him about all of this stuff while Natalie just like zones out in the back seat with the kids. 1805 Natalie. Mary very clearly has a crush on one of the neighbors that came over and helped old Caleb with the fence. And so she goes and invites them to dinner. And Natalie is just watching Mary have this crush on these men, or at least on one of the men. And she wants to think that it's cute. And she's like, maybe in another lifetime or in another whatever, I would be like supportive of her having her first crush. But Natalie realizes that if Mary likes this man and gets married to him, then that's one less woman in the house. And then Natalie would have to take on all of these responsibilities and maintain the household and have another kid and do all this stuff. So she's like, I have to get out of here before Mary leaves. I can't let Mary fall in love with these people and marry and move and blah, blah, blah. And so That kind of freaks her out a little bit. That spirals her into, in the middle of dinner with like old Caleb, the neighbors, Mary, Maeve, the boys, everybody. All of a sudden, in the middle of eating, she like blurts it out. She's like, I'm being held against my will. These people kidnapped me. This isn't my real family. This isn't anything. Like, I need to go home. Nobody reacts to her. The neighbor just looks at her and then turns to old Caleb and then starts talking about the chicken coop and just completely moves on. Old Caleb just sighs and like asks her to pass the peas or whatever. Nothing. No acknowledgement at all about anything. Back to modern day Natalie. She is realizing how much Shannon has everybody around the farm wrapped around her finger. And while this was good at first, because it meant she was handling a bunch of things and was really good at it, that also means that Shannon is now kind of like turning the tides against her. And she's seeing the way that Shannon and Caleb are talking a little more flirtatiously and like touching, and there's like lingering hand touches sometimes, and it's starting to drive her crazy and having her around. And then in the middle of these thoughts, Caleb walks in the room and he says, hey, we need to talk. So we're reaching, I guess, kind of like a climax in that timeline. And then in the 1805 timeline, we're also hitting a climax where Natalie's worried about Mary leaving. And then also Mary comes into the room and says that Maeve is sick. Like, she's really, really sick. I'm incredibly worried about her. Like, I literally think she is about to die. Natalie internally realizes yet again, she's like, I'm pregnant. I have to get this baby out of me before I can't anymore, right? Before I actually have to give birth. Like, I have to terminate this pregnancy. She's like, I have to get out of here before Maeve dies because that would add a lot to my plate. And I have to get out of here before Mary gets married because that would also add a lot to my plate. She's like, I have this very narrow window. I have to run away as fast as possible, like as soon as possible, to avoid all of these things like spiraling even more out of control. Mary can sense this, that Natalie is going to run away, but she's desperate because Maeve really is sick, and it's been days of her just getting sicker and sicker and her fever getting worse and no medicine is helping. And so Mary says, we need a doctor. Like, you have to go and find a doctor. What Caleb needed to talk to modern Natalie about was that he is in love with Shannon and he is going to leave and go with her to New York. The night Caleb told me what happened with Shannon, I was 6 months pregnant with our 6th child and didn't sleep a wink. I lay there in the darkness, staring at the ceiling. So she was also 6 months pregnant. Yeah, because Shannon just quit when we opened up the book, and she was 6 months pregnant at that time. So I guess we're like, our current timelines are all like starting to merge as well, right? Like we like started at this moment, and then we went to Natalie's start of life and then worked through her entire life, and we're almost caught up to the moment that we were at the start of the book. I hope to God that makes sense to you. I was 6 months pregnant with our 6th child and didn't sleep a wink. I lay there in the darkness, staring at the ceiling while my husband snored peacefully next to me. The sound made smoke pour out of my ears, but of course he slept peacefully. As soon as Caleb told me what was going on and what was happening under my nose, he had effectively handed the problem over to me. That was, after all, how all good marriages worked. The husband moved instinctually through the world. He did the things he wanted to do and didn't do the things he didn't want to do. And I, happy wife, happy life, trailed beatifically in front of and behind him, sweeping the ground clean for him to walk forward, and then just as quickly sweeping his messy footprints away. That's what they told me to do, right? All those women who came before me, be a mother, be a wife, and keep the household clean. Liars. Every Christian woman I ever met had been a big, fat, lying bastard. Lord have mercy on their big, fat, lying bastard souls. And so she decides to confront Shannon. She goes up to the room where the nannies and Shannon share all the bunk beds, right? And they sleep up in this, like, extra area. And she confronts her, and she's like, can you guess what Caleb told me? Shannon says, yeah, I figured this was coming. I felt a firm awareness that I was standing in the most wondrous moment of my life. You don't feel bad at all. You're a whore, a homewrecker, and you don't even care. Shannon raised her eyebrows. It was the only part of her expression that moved. Actually, she said quietly, I'm not. This is what I'm trying to say to you, Natalie. In order for me to be a homewrecker, you You would have had to have had a home for me to wreck, and you don't. You don't even have a family. What you have is a business. Your nannies know it, your farmhands know it, your husband knows it, and someday your kids will know it too. And you know what? I think that they're going to hate you for it. I think they'll never forgive you. Oh, Jesus Christ. And so next thing Natalie knows, she like blinks, and then she's on top of 6 months pregnant, remind you. 15 years old in the trailer, and he ties hers in the oven. Oh, it's a quote from another thing. If you know, you know. So anyway, she comes to realizing that she is on top of 6 months pregnant, on top of Shannon choking her, like strangling the life out of this woman, pissed off that how dare she say these things to her. She takes her hands off of Shannon's neck, and Shannon's like, I can't believe you would do this, Natalie. Like, blah, 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 you freaking psychopath. Natalie just leaves the room, knows that she messed up. And along the way, by the way, too, it's acknowledged that, okay, I can't find it at all for some reason, but whenever she went to choke Shannon, she was like in the middle of getting dressed. And so she was wearing pants, but they weren't fully buttoned. And then when Natalie got off of Shannon, her pants were like down around her knees. And she made a note of like, oh, like her pants must have fallen down during this like scuffle that we had. And like her shirt was like pulled up over her or something. And it was like really weird. It was just this like odd description, okay? So just kind of like put that in your back pocket as well as we go forward. And so her reaction to this and realizing how much she effed up for putting hands on this woman, she goes to call her father-in-law. Mr. Politician, he'll know what to do. He'll know what to fix it, like how to fix this. And so she tells him, she's like, hey, you know, I think, I think Caleb is ready to run for office. I think he should run to be a senator now. We need a distraction. You know, do I think Caleb is ready to win? Of course I didn't. Of course he wasn't. But I would rather give my idiot husband clearance to our nation's nuclear codes than find myself a single, homeless, divorced mother of 5 with a 6th on the way. My reputation destroyed, barely $1 to my name. So instead, she's going to get him on the hook to run for senator. And if he runs for that, then he can't divorce her and abandon his kids, because the whole selling point of his brand would be having this farm and having a wife. And if you run away with your mistress, then like that's not a very good selling point for politicians, supposedly, apparently, in this world. That is the reason that she's going to try to push for this. And then so she's talking to her father-in-law about making that happen, and then also about getting lawyers involved with this whole Shannon situation, and that they're going to have to like unfuck it, you know? I don't know. It's a bunch of chaos. We're in the home stretch of the book, okay? I.e., we cut back 1805 Natalie, and Mary is helping her pack to let her run away to go and find a doctor for Maeve. She's getting ready, and Mary tells her there was only ever one trap in the woods. You could have gotten away months ago or weeks ago or whatever. I was trying to keep you safe. They have this like bonding moment a little bit. Natalie almost wants to say that she loves her, but she also realizes that maybe she doesn't. She's just like projecting weird maternal feelings or something. And she goes off and gallivants into the woods. Mary gives her advice about what to look for on the trees and where to go, what direction to head, blah, blah, blah. And she is off. Modern day Natalie, after this confrontation with Shannon, is realizing it was Shannon who told Clementine what a tradwife is, because she needed Clementine's help. Shannon, a couple weeks prior, had said that her phone had been broken, and she needed a new one. And so they had bought her one, like as employers, like to help her keep in touch with them or whatever, bought her a phone. Natalie's realizing her phone didn't break. She gave her old phone to Clementine, so Clementine could like take videos and record us and take pictures and blah, 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 to give her this like expose on us. Like, Shannon is about to turn. Like, this is crazy. And I just gave her all of the ammo in the freaking world to speak ill of us, right? To ruin our image. At the same time that all of this realization and stuff is happening, she calls her mom to try to get some advice, try to find some comfort. But her mom, like, derails the conversation immediately and starts talking about how she's going to therapy now and how she's really bonding with the other sister, and opens up to Natalie that like, hey, your dad didn't cheat on me. Actually, I cheated on him. and then ran away before he could divorce me because I didn't want like the repercussions of my actions, essentially. But yeah, I was the one who actually did it. And so this, another like fundamental crack to Natalie's, ideas of what family is and like what a Christian wife is supposed to do, right? Like she always looked up to her mom and took all of this advice, but turns out her mom was in fact not this like perfect, enigma. That's not the right word. Perfect like thing of a woman. She realizes that, and then Natalie pushes back, says some other like really hurtful things, and then the mom all of a sudden she's like, why can't you just be nice? You don't even know how to be nice, Natalie, and hangs up on her. Oh, okay. Cut to father-in-law trying to clean up this mess, right? This Shannon mess. And in the middle of talking to it with the lawyers and the PR people and the whatever, Natalie asks, are you worried about the campaign? Like, do you think having this come out, if Shannon goes out and she reports like misconduct by her employers or assault by her employers, whatever, do we think that this will hurt our campaign? The advisor guy, he says, no, that shouldn't be a problem. No, Doug's base will rally around him. Middle America is deeply sympathetic to successful parents who have disappointing children. It fits perfectly with Doug's message, really. Kids are spoiled these days. No one knows how to work hard. The American dream is dead. That sort of thing. In fact, it would really help us if it turned out that either of you had a drug problem. Do either of you have a drug problem? No, Caleb muttered. No, I echoed through gritted teeth. Which is also a crazy concept of like being the disappointment child and like having people complain about you would actually help my political campaign because I can exploit you. That's wild. I can change the narrative and have people support me more because you're a crappy kid. That's crazy. So in the process of like trying to maybe negate some of the effects of that, also they're like protecting the image of his presidential campaign. There's also just like crazy stuff to think about. 1805, Natalie, making her way through the woods, finally comes across a cabin. A log cabin, but it looks like it's from modern times, and then she sees a blue pickup truck in the driveway. She is, in fact, not in 1805. So she goes inside, and there's like a mini fridge and a hot plate and a bunch of ramen. I crossed quietly over the threshold and into the small wooden kitchen. Suddenly, I'm staring at a framed picture of my own family hanging on the opposite wall. It's from a long time ago. Me, Caleb, Clementine, Samuel, and baby Stetson. I don't remember the day it was taken, but I do remember the caption that accompanied it when I shared it online. God is pleased when families work together. And then eventually she comes across one of the neighbors. He's like sitting in the room facing a TV and sees that he's getting vegetables from like one box, peeling off the grocery stickers off of it and putting it in another box. And then she confronts him. Oh, no, actually, one more worse thing. She looks, as she's going into the cabin, she looks up and above it is carved manosphere. Also, I've been saying that word a lot, and I guess maybe if you don't know what that is, let me Google it. Manosphere Reddit. The Manosphere on Reddit is a network of forums promoting anti-feminist, often misogynistic, and male supremacist viewpoints, heavily focusing on rigid traditional masculinity, sexual strategy, and resentment towards women. Key hubs have historically included the Red Pill, representing a rise in reactionary ideologies, often attracting young, lonely men. So that's what I was talking about, of like he was on these forums that were encouraging and I don't know what you would call it, like feeding into basically and like worsening his anti-feminist, traditionalist, blah, 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 blah type of views. Sorry, I said it wrong. Blah, 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 blah type of views. And then now she shows up at this cabin and it says Manosphere on it. That's a little alarming. And so she confronts the neighbor and she's like, hey, doctor, I need a doctor. And he turns around and it's the neighbor kid who was helping with the fence thing before. He turns around, sees her, gets this like really weird expression on his face, and he says, Mama? What? What do you mean? Chapter 54, like I said, I think there's only like 3 more chapters and then the final part left. Chapter 54 is, turns out, Shannon not only is going to do this like expose piece and talk about it and maybe like get them complain about them on like social media forums and stuff and expose that the farm is fake. No, she got a primetime television spot to do an interview piece and to do like a piece on TV about the farm, about Yesteryear Ranch, and about her employers and how terrible they are. And so the father-in-law and his legal team are realizing, oh, she must like have some like not beefy, juicy, like gossipy information. She must have some stuff if she was able to pull a primetime spot. We are screwed. This is not looking good, because that also means that she presents well and people will like her and believe her. And so this is not boding well at all for us. So it comes on, right? Primetime TV. It's on freaking ABC national television, okay? And she goes on and she's talking about how creepy the ranch was. And she's like playing videos, keep playing, of this like behind the scene footage that she had showing just the bad vibes and how unhappy everybody was and all the kids crying all the time and how everybody was so miserable. And then it cuts to a video of Natalie straddling and choking Shannon. She had it recorded. And so the father-in-law and his team did not know that that's what happened. She was not truthful with them about what had occurred. She had told them that she had like hit her, or that it got, I think she didn't even say that. She said it got physical. There was like an altercation. She did not tell them that this is what happened, that she was so blatantly like violent and in the wrong. And then Shannon looks directly in the camera and she says, "I forgive you, Natalie." So she feels sick. And then the father-in-law, he's like, "We're screwed." He says, "We're effed." And the mother-in-law is like, "Oh, you bad girl. You bad girl." Oh, no. And she says, which is crazy. This is actually an insane quote. As she's watching this ABC thing and realizing how much her life is about to fall apart, she's thinking, if only my husband had R'd our producer. That was basically what my father-in-law had said last night, what he had roared for hours and hours while a rotating cast of side characters. Me, then his wife, then finally just the lawyers stared numbly at nothing. If only his stupid little son had R'd our stupid little producer. If that had happened, it would have been over and forgotten in 2 weeks. But a predatory woman? Unthinkable. A good Christian mother and wife who allegedly found other women attractive, who took what she wanted without asking? Kill the witch. Burn her. And you're thinking, a predatory woman, a good Christian mother who found other women attractive? Where did that come up? So not only did this interview relay how much of a lie this farm was and how much, the kids are living crappy lives and not getting educated, and Natalie is like a monster, Shannon also goes on during the interview when the interviewer is asking Shannon like, "Hey, can we talk about the event?" Right? The video plays of Natalie strangling her, and then they talk about it more. And she's like, "Yeah, she called me all these terrible names, straddled me, my jeans were around my feet, screaming. I felt so terrified, and she wouldn't get off me. I felt so violated. I told her to get off me. I was screaming for her to get off me." And then back and forth. I can't speak to her sexuality, but I can say it felt very violating for me. And so that's the other reason that everybody is a little bit freaking the F out over this situation, because, yeah, yikes. And from her perspective, when the event happened, it didn't, at least she couldn't remember, right? She like kind of blacked out in a rage. And so she can't really confirm or deny if this really happened or not, or how like assaulting and weird and whatever that this had gotten. And also she can't say how somebody else felt about it, right? Like no matter if she did something, it's up to the other person about how they felt about the situation and how it was perceived and blah, 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 right? I'm not saying that it didn't happen. I'm saying that Natalie does not acknowledge that it happens at any point, or that that's what it was her like assaulting her in like a sexual way. But it being painted that way, being presented that way on national television is like the worst nail in the coffin that you could get for this good Christian wife. Right? Not only are you a monster, but then you're a monster cheating on your husband, and you're a monster cheating on your husband who's gay. Like layers upon layers of life-ruining information all getting spilled out at once. After this television interview with modern-day Natalie, she leaves the room and goes and takes the little happy mommy little helper pills that she got from Caleb's mom. And they're a couple years old. They're definitely expired by now because she never took them because she didn't need them, right? Because she had convinced herself that people were watching her all the time, and then that's how she got through motherhood, and so she never needed these pills. Now she does. She takes like 3 of them. And then all of a sudden, time's passing, it's really weird, and then Caleb comes in there and confronts her and is like angry and cursing at her and saying all these like terrible things to her, and about how he should have divorced her a long time ago. You devil bitch, my father was right. I should have divorced you when I had the chance. I looked up at him. Is that what he wants you to do? Divorce me? He took a step away from me, breathing hard. That's what he wanted me to do, yes. But do you know what he wants to do now? I tasted iron. My lip was bleeding. Not in the slightest. He wants to kill you. I shook my head slowly. Don't be ridiculous. I'm not. He said a car accident would be the easiest. These winding mountain roads, such a steep drop. He shrugged. It was his turn to watch me absorb this information. No one would suspect a thing. And so she's upset about this, obviously. Kill me. They wanted to kill me. How absurd, how funny, and also how practical. Even if they never actually did it, what a clever way to shackle me to this ranch, to make me never want to leave. Now I would never drive off the property again without wondering if today was going to be the day. After all, what were good Christian men if not experts at making their good Christian women vanish from the world? How boring, how deeply and utterly unfair. I did everything I was supposed to do. I had the children and married the man and created a universe for us all to live in. And what was I going to get for it? Murdered, apparently. Featured in some future documentary about the latest pregnant woman to break her neck in a ditch somewhere. Caleb might go to jail for a year or 2. Probably not. Regardless, he would be remarried within the decade. He'd have a second round of kids. And so they have like a whole confrontation where he's like, you built this world. I'm so miserable on this farm. You created this life, and like I feel like I'm suffocating. I hate it here. And she's like ignored him and never taken him seriously and always thought he was dumb, right? He and Shannon did actually like fall for each other because she took him seriously and pushed back on his beliefs. And this is like kind of a common trope that gets talked about a lot, especially on, I don't even know what type of forums, but there's this like whole thing about conservative men that like actively seek out to date and end up marrying oftentimes like alternative women or like goth women or like whatever, these like really progressive types. And then these conservative men like pursue them. And it almost is like a fantasy about like breaking their wings essentially, and like, changing this secular woman, educated woman who's like going against the grain, and like getting her to be a traditional housewife is like a challenge in things, and like trying to convince her to have kids and whatever if she was against it. And there's like a very odd thing that happens quite often of conservative men being attractive to alternative women and women who challenge their beliefs, but it's like the Madonna horror complex. Very odd things, and I know I'm probably not making sense. I'm putting out a bunch of thoughts at once. But him wanting to leave his traditional submissive wife for a woman who challenges him and questions him would probably not last very long, because the whole challenge would get old until she became submissive, and then that would be a whole thing. And I don't know, it's all weird and crazy. Anyway, none of it matters. She ends up pushing back on Caleb, and she's like, let me talk to your dad. He doesn't want me dead. He just wants me fixed. An hour later, I was walking slowly down the hallway, hand tracing the walls, my feet equal parts lighter and heavier than I was used to. It wasn't clear to me if I was marching toward my own salvation or toward my own imminent death. Don't look back, I reminded myself. Don't look back, don't look back. I imagined Caleb and my children turning to salt, the ranch set on fire, my whole world burning, the sky filled with ash. But what about the women in the Bible who look forward? What happens to them? A question so much easier for me to answer at 33 than it had been for me at 17. Because that was the quote that she thought of when she got on the plane on her way to Harvard, was to not look back at her previous life. Part 2 ends... Oh, I'm going to hoss on chop my cat. I'm just going to have to hold him. He's trying to eat my bugles. Part 2 ends with Natalie running away from the cabin, stumbling from the woods, super freaked out with everything that's happening, and ends up back at the Yesteryear ranch cabin and runs into old Caleb and talking to him, and he's asking her where she was, and she's like, yeah, I was just for a walk. Nothing crazy. And then all of a sudden she hears a car coming, and it is Clementine. An adult Clementine drives a car to the ranch. And old Caleb is like, "Well, surprised to see you here. How's it going?" And she's like, "I love what you've done with the place." Very just short and snippy. And Natalie is like, "Judgment Day has come." Uh-oh. And so then part 3, the final part of the book, is titled The Future. And this is where I stopped reading because I started getting pissed off. So let me read a little bit of this and I'll touch base with you every couple of paragraphs because this is the only chapter. It's literally just this little chunk of book and then we're done here. She has a little bit of back and forth with Caleb and Clementine and ends up inviting Clementine inside for dinner with them. This freaks her out a little bit. Like, this is the only time that Clementine has showed any type of distress. But she agrees to do it. And then we get another of the little chapter page break thing where she is being interviewed. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Heller Mills. I'm Lucy, one of the producers assigned with preparing you for the interview tomorrow. Before we get started, though, are you comfortable? Can we get you anything? Coffee, water, kombucha? And while I have you, this might be rude. Please tell me if it's rude, but I just need to know. Is it nice having so much access to choice after so many years living so separately, or are you overwhelmed?" Okay, back into what's actually happening. Clementine goes inside their house, makes some comments about like, "Oh, I can't believe you still live here. I can't believe you live here. I can't believe you live in this like squalor, essentially." And then Natalie is in the middle of making dinner for them. Clementine shakes her head in sadness or maybe in disbelief, and then she looks at me. Her expression twists with anger. "My God, Mother, do you seriously still smile all the time? For what? For whom?" All I can do is, well, you know, smile. To always pretend that she is being watched to be able to get through life and to cope with all of the bad stuff going on is just to smile. Oh my God. Hey, get out of my chips. You see why I had to move my chips up here, dude? I love the kitten phase, if anybody's watching. This is Loki. I think you guys have met him. I think I just didn't like formally introduce you. Look at the people. He's like 3 months old. He's just a little baby. He's almost 4 months. But he is going through his like kitten bitey phase. Bitey, chompy, I want to chew on everything in the freaking universe phase. And also just being a general psychopath. He's really living up to the name Loki. We might have jinxed ourselves naming him that. But yeah, so I'm trying to get used to this kitten chaos. And page break chunk thing. Shannon sued us. Shannon is suing us. Shannon will sue us. A million voices in collective reply. Apologize. Back to the interview thing. It's so choppy back and forth here. The interviewer, though. "I believe you've already been prepped on talking points of this interview, so I'll just run through a quick overview of what we plan to cover tomorrow. What we're really curious about is what happened after your former producer accused you of assault. Your social presence really changed after that. It became increasingly intense, I guess you could say, in terms of your homesteading lifestyle. And then when you chose to delete your account so abruptly, well, let's just say your followers have a lot of questions. We'll spend some time today unpacking that time period, and then after that, we can talk about your father-in-law's failed presidential campaign. And then, well, you can drive that part of the conversation. How does that sound?" Okay. Back at dinner time, Clementine is asking Dad, "Is she always like this?" And he says there are good days and there are bad days. On good days, I am calm. I believe that if I do a good enough job, if I prove to the world that I really am living out here on land as an honest woman, a good Christian traditional wife, then the angry women will eventually forgive me. And the momentum will swing back in my favor, and the state of Idaho will drop all its pending charges against me. The ones the lawyers warned would come before my father-in-law paid them all off. Sexual assault, aggravated assault, improper working conditions, wire fraud, animal abuse, child abuse. Do you see? If I finally actually and truly became the thing I claimed so long to be, then no one could call me a liar anymore. A liar anymore. A liar anymore. A liar anymore. A liar any... And then there are bad days. You don't need to know about those, Clementine. You don't need to know about the panic attacks and the conspiracy theory and the tests of the Lord, the producers in the trees, the pebbles, the microphones, the mornings I wake up and feel so spun around that I think I've been kidnapped. We're so happy to have you, I blurt out. Clementine's face twitches and my heart sinks. It was the wrong thing to say. Bad Natalie. My online Natalie sensors fizzle and spark. She takes pills sometimes, Caleb says, to calm down. Pills? I question. We crush them into a tonic, he tells Clementine. They help, but we're always running out of them. Samuel gets them when he can, but with all of the external scrutiny, we have to ration them. So she's constantly moving in and out of pharmaceutical haze, Clementine says. Perfect. That's just perfect. Clementine, why are you here? Caleb says again. Stetson called, she says. He said that Mom stumbled into his house rambling about needing a doctor and then ran off just as quickly, and he was really freaked out. No, I say. It was nothing like that. It was obviously... Did you say Stetson? There's a name I haven't allowed myself to say out loud in a very, very long time. But Clementine is looking past me now. I turn to see Mary, standing by the door of her bedroom, staring at Clementine like she's just caught a glimpse of the afterlife. Back to the interview. So tell me if I understand this correctly. Your father-in-law resolved Shannon's lawsuit out of court and then paid the media to stop covering the story. Any person who spoke about you on social media in any speculatory fashion received a cease and desist order from his lawyers. He strong-armed local law enforcement to drop the case they were building against you. And then you, Natalie, began again. You ripped out the hardwood floors, renovated the walls and ceiling, and removed all signs of modernity from your home and farming areas. You decided to live like the olden days. For what, though? To prove a point? To protect yourself from legal troubles? You're going to need to help us make sense of this, Natalie. You're going to need to help us understand. The children left when Clementine turned 16. A month earlier, we had finally sold our car, the last piece of modernity that we'd been holding on to. Clementine must have known what was coming. She took the kids one morning for a walk and they never came back. She knew those woods so well, better than anyone. It would have been easy for her to find her way out. Suddenly, Caleb and I were parents of an only child, a little girl. That is, of course, until we had more. So these are all of her kids. Mary, these two other little boys, and Maeve. These are her children as well, okay? And that also means that when the neighbors came over and helped with the fence and Mary was developing a crush on the neighbor, no wonder Caleb looked disgusted by it. She was crushing on her brother. Oh my God. The girls, I say, thinking of Jessa and Junebug, are the girls okay? In some way or another, Clementine says evenly, the girls aren't doing well, but they're alive, and the boys, well, the boys are here. I don't know what to say to that. There are whole universes inside that response, but every firing neuron in my brain is hissing and sparking against the idea of inquiring further. And then she says, tell me, what did you say to Mary? Where did you say that we all went? Because if they all disappeared when she was 16, Mary would have, so she would have been a toddler, maybe a little bit older than that. And so Caleb and Natalie told her that all of her siblings were dead. They'd gone to heaven. She was so young, a toddler, milky mouth, moldable brain. It was easy. She barely understood what we were saying. Over those years, my brain began to whine and smoke from the pressure until finally it snapped in half like a twig. There really was no other option. You believe me, don't you, that there was no other option? My father-in-law was on board with the idea, and then he wasn't. He couldn't believe we sold the car. Came to visit one day and saw Caleb digging a hole for an outhouse and said we had lost our minds. But by then it was too late. The hole we had dug too big. And so he reversed slowly down the hill and never visited us again. I don't know. I guess Clementine is asking what is different about this time. Like, why did she go to Stetson and talk to them? You know, Mom hasn't left the ranch, hasn't done any of this stuff in years, so why are you doing it now? And she says, I am pregnant. Everything changed when I realized that, and I had to leave. There's a long silence in the room. And then Clementine eventually, she's like, Mom, you're not pregnant. You're 50 years old. 17 years have passed, right? We ended that one chapter with her saying that was an easier question to answer when I was 33 than when I was 17. She's 50. 17 years have passed living this Oregon Trail ass life. And then Clementine just like reiterates this. She's like, Mom, you're not pregnant. You're going through menopause. That's why you stopped having your period or whatever. Yeah, so it turns out the sons have been living in that house to help support them. And they literally like go and for years now, they've been supplying us with vegetables and fruits and big frozen hunks of grocery store butcher's meat when the traps come up empty and the fish don't bite. And then they take off all the things and pretend that it's come from the farm, that Caleb is collecting it somehow in the farm. This is the part I've never known. Not even in the farthest recesses of my flickering light bulb mind, I never knew. It's a delight to be able to say that honestly. Can you hear me, Your Honor? I really didn't know. I suppose a normal person would have wondered how their incompetent husband could have managed to provide food year after year, but do you know what? I didn't wonder once. I have become, hear me when I say this, a good motherfucking Christian woman. I do not, anymore, ask questions of my husband that he does not want to hear. And my husband, oh yes, a very good Christian man, does not tell me things I do not need to know. Clementine turns her attention to her dad and is asking, why did you go along with it? He says, I didn't want to leave your mother and the children alone out here. He said passionately, I didn't have a choice, Clemmy. You have to believe me. I roll my eyes. If there's one thing I know, it's that this was a lie. Your father went internally, she's thinking. Your father went along with it because it was a perfectly fine deal for him. Better than fine. Ideal. Because it allowed him to escape from the pressure and criticism and disappointment that has followed him his whole lousy life. Because he became a crazy doomsday prepper loon of conspiracy theorist. And because he always dreamed of a world where he could do absolutely nothing and have no one say boo. And I, the ever-loving wife, offered this to him on an increasingly large silver platter until finally we reached the grand finale. Because Shannon, it turned out, was completely right. He had so little to give up, and so very much to gain. And if I really think about it, he's always been a stupid f***ing asshole to begin with. So then finally, Clementine says that I want to talk to Mom alone. Mother, Clementine says when she's finished eating, do you remember Shannon? And also, she's eating, and there's like a note that Clementine looks at the food and like how disgusting all of it is, okay? Do you remember Shannon? I smile. Of course I do. Calls her a B-word, effing, home-wrecking, see you next Tuesday. Good God. She and I have kept in touch, let's say, over the years. When I told her that I was going to try to see you, do you know what she said? She told me to go easy on you. She said it would be hard for you seeing me and seeing how I've moved forward. I nod, but I'm not quite listening. I'm stuck on Shannon, who's in her 30s now. Amazing. For the first time in almost 20 years, I realized something strange. The world didn't stop when we left it. Clementine didn't die. She grew up, and Shannon, and the world. I shake my head. Clementine, and Shannon, and the world, and Clementine, and Shannon. Clementine leans forward. Do you know, Mother, what the hardest part of leaving you was? It wasn't walking through the woods with the kids or waiting for the car to stop. It wasn't moving in with Grandma, all 5 of us in a single bedroom. It was months after I'd gotten to the other side when I realized that every single thing you told me about the world was a lie. Everything was so much better than I thought it would be. The people were nicer, the cities were cleaner. I was right. It was better living with Grandma and Abigail, her aunt, like Natalie's sister, than it was to live with you. And when she took us to see the ocean, I just didn't get it. I didn't get why my family never wanted to be a part of it. Why did you never want to be a part of it? They keep talking about time moving forward. And then Caleb tells Clementine that it's time to leave. And she's like, yeah, I think that's a good idea. And as she goes out to her car, she's like, oh, by the way, where are the kids? The kids? Caleb and I speak at once. Oh yeah, did I forget to mention that? Silly me. I didn't come here for lunch. I came here for the kids. I have a warrant if you'd like to see. What is this? Caleb asks. Something I've been wanting to do for a long time, but couldn't until our father-in-law, my grandpa, ran out of money, and Stetson called the officers and agreed with everything I've been saying for years. So thank you, Mother, for reminding my brother how crazy you truly are. And so now she's here to get the kid, to take all of the kids away. And she starts freaking out. Natalie does. And she's crying and she's begging Clementine to, you cannot leave me here alone. You cannot leave me here with him. She cocks her head and I see an ounce of sympathy in her gaze. You're the one who built this place, Mom. You don't need anyone's help to leave it. So all of the kids are crying and sobbing as they all have to pile into the back of Clementine's car because she's taking them because of child neglect. And she ends up telling her mom and dad that animal control will be there soon to get all the animals that are clearly also being neglected and abused. And then finally, right as the car is about to drop out of sight, I realize what I'm supposed to be doing. I fix my expression into a smile and lift my hand into the air. I wave at my babies. I shout lovingly, goodbye. So she goes from this like sobbing mess, regretting everything in life, to realizing she has to go back to playing her role. Oh my God. And so then all of a sudden, they're alone, and he's like, I can't believe the kids are just gone like this. I can't believe it at all. And then all of a sudden, she's like, I think you were right, Caleb. Right about what? I think that we should have gotten a divorce a very long time ago. I think I hate you. I think, he says slowly in a stunned sort of voice, that I might really hate you too. Oh, what? And then she's like, I think we need to go. I need to leave here before I lose my mind again. I can feel it, the force of Clementine's arrival, how she magnetized all my thoughts into momentary order. And I can feel it just as powerfully, how the momentary order is already shivering and straining from the effort to hold on. And so she's like, I have to leave this farm before I lose my mind again. Like, let's just go somewhere. I don't care where. We just have to leave. There will be consequences if I leave, but none so great as the consequences of staying. Well, I say impatiently, do you want to come with me or not? A long moment passes. Yeah, he says, I think I do. I reach for his hand and together we walk. So that's the end of the book. And then there's an epilogue 5 years later, and she is being interviewed. All of the interview portions that we've had throughout the book that I've mentioned, she is being interviewed in a set that is made to look like her old kitchen, like when she was Instagram famous, like that version of her kitchen. And it's kind of weird and like odd. And so she sits down to be interviewed. They have a little bit of like conversations back and forth. And all of a sudden, Rena Magliotti walks through the front door in a flurry of earth tones and clacking heels, a cashmere coat shrugging off into the arms of an assistant, revealing a silk blouse that has, I notice approvingly, not a single wrinkle to be found. I watch her as she speaks to a series of crew members, her gaze carrying wondrously around until it finally lands on me. Natalie, she says. My God. She looks, yes, gobsmacked. Suddenly, I am 19 years old again, pregnant with my first child, and Rena is hungover, standing before me with that same astonished look on her face. Then I blink again, and I am 55 years old, covered in worldly shackles, a few literal ones too. So they have this whole, like, Rena goes on and she's like, I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe this is happening. I think this might be the strangest day of my life. And so they go on to have this interview, and before they begin, Rena is asking for clarification of like, hey, I just want to make sure you're okay with this. Like, are you comfortable talking about all this? Natalie says, my lawyers tell me this is the best way for America to see the true Natalie Heller Mills. It's how I'm going to garner sympathy, and I told my lawyers there was only one person up for the job of speaking to me. Rena, that's you. And then they go to talk about how this is going to be a viral interview. And before they begin the actual interview, Natalie asks Rena if has a family and if she's married now. She's like, oh, I don't think we've got time for that. And Natalie pushes. She's like, no, seriously, like, I need to know. Like, do you have a family? Get married? Have kids? She hesitates and then says, I have a family now, yes, but it probably looks different than what someone like you would imagine. What does that mean? She taps the stack of note cards on her thigh. How about this? I'll answer your questions after the interview, okay? I'll tell you all about it. Natalie is currently serving a 30-year sentence for 4 counts of aggravated child abuse, among other lesser charges. And Rena pulls out a book. The Book of Mary. It is Mary, like Natalie's daughter. She wrote a memoir. Her book is being released, and so the timing of this interview lines up for that, as well as like kind of advertisement for it, basically. And Natalie had no idea that this book was written or being released or anything. I was wondering if you would read the prologue today. Right now, I ask? Yes, right now. You read it, I say. Then I think of my lawyers who always tell me to be polite, and my mother who always told me to be kind, and so I add quickly, please. And then the prologue is talking about this little girl who grew up in the mountains, little girl who realized her mom was sick and years passed, and then Clementine appearing and saving her, and how she left to have like a better life. Yeah. The little girl in the woods was me, Mary Heller Mills. It's been 5 years since I left Yesteryear Ranch. I live in Santa Monica now in a small apartment with my older sister and my little sister and my brothers. It was Clementine's idea to move here. She always wanted to live by the ocean and had refused to move away from town until she found a way to save us from our parents. The day we left Yesteryear, she broke her apartment lease. It was time, she said, to begin again. And now she's off living a happy life in the city. And it's literally just her talking about being happy, being away from her mom. I'm trying to see if this is like anything worth reading other than us getting reassurance that all the kids are happy now. She does say, this is interesting for me though. She says, there's a lot about your life that makes me sad. Because now Mary is writing to her mother through the prologue of the book, where she's like, I was told that my mom would probably never read this, but I know she will. So, you know, hey mom, blah, blah, blah. Here's a bunch of stuff. And then there's a lot about your life that makes me sad. But do you know what makes me the saddest, mama? how much beauty you've missed, because it really is beautiful. This future you prayed that we would never get the chance to see. I think you'd like it if you gave it a chance, but that's something I've learned in the years since I left the ranch. You cannot change people who refuse to be changed. You can only love them. So here it is, all the love I have to give pressed into the pages of this book. I hope you read this book one day, all the way to the end, because as it turns out, the place where your life ends is exactly where mine begins. The moment when I saw the world and wanted every part of it. And then they all live happily ever after, and she's going to continue serving her time in jail, I guess. And we never hear about Rena's family, so I'm going to assume that she's in some sort of like LGBT relationship of whatever kind. I don't know how I feel about this. I think I would have liked for it to have been magical. I just don't think I like the ending of it. That felt so weird. I don't think it was even like well, I guess the pacing was kind of weird, right? Because halfway through I was like, good God, get this over with. And it got a little repetitive in certain parts. But also just that ending feels so anticlimactic. I can't put my finger on why. It was objectively an interesting book. And I think that there was really great aspects of the writing. Like, definitely very talented writer. I would read more from this author for sure. But there was some great, I think, commentary on, these like Tradwife Christian content creators. I think there's some interesting dynamics there, and I thought it was fascinating. I really liked the unlikable character, like I mentioned. There was a lot of good about this book, but something in that last bit just fell so flat for me. I don't think I like the idea of her just living here and being mentally ill. And then obviously, yeah, she got away with it all for like 10 years because the grandpa was paying everybody off, or like her father-in-law or whatever was paying the police to leave them alone. But that seems like not right either. I just don't know. Why would this have been a solution that the dad would have been okay with? I mean, I guess it took care of his problems and he could just sweep it under the rug and continue his failed presidential campaign. But like, why was she really just trying to prove it to people? And then what? She just went into like psychosis and then just stayed there for 15 years? Was there no like end goal or end thing for proving it? You would think you'd be like 6 months and I'll figure it out and then I'll prove to everybody I'm right. And then what? You just like fall into delusion? Why was she there for so long? What was the intent of it? We never got the answers in the interview. You can't present me and try to wrap up a book with an interview and then not give me the answers to it. I don't know, dude. I'm so like, I don't know how I feel right now. I feel like, I don't know. I don't feel complete. I don't feel happy with how this book ended. And like I said, I can't put my finger on why, and that's really frustrating for me. But anyway, that was Yesteryear. Let me know your thoughts down below. Like I said, check out the description box people that I put in there, because they're all super awesome. Love all of their stuff. I watch all of their videos all the time. And then, yeah, I don't know. I gotta edit. It's now 6:30. So what was that? Exactly 3 hours of filming, and then I have to edit and get this up. So, yeah, I gotta get going, actually. I realized I can't waste any more time. So, I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you again. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know how you liked this book. If you read it, if you're gonna check it out, whatever. And comment down below. I don't know, leave a like, comment, subscribe, whatever I'm supposed to say here. And I will see you in the next one. Bye!